your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci-Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci-Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci-Hub Research University. Welcome to PhilSci-Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci-Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci-Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci-Hub Research University. Welcome to PhilSci-Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci-Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci-Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci-Hub Research University.
Mabuhay! Welcome to the Filipino Science Hub. Thank you for your continued support to this online platform. To our new participants, thank you for checking us out today, and we would like to officially welcome you to the PhilSci-Hub family. Before we start the webinar, I would like to share some house rules in order to facilitate a smooth session. For our Zoom participants, we would appreciate it if you could turn your audio and video cameras off during the webinar. If you have questions or comments, feel free to type them on our Zoom chat box or YouTube live comments, and we will try to accommodate as much questions as possible. After the talk, we will have a 30-minute Q&A where the Zoom participants will have the opportunity to ask their questions live. For those who would like to receive a certificate of participation, a Google form link will be posted on our Zoom chat box, YouTube live comments, and YouTube video description towards the end of the webinar. Again, welcome to all our Zoom participants and YouTube live viewers. For those who are new and may not be familiar with who we are and what we do, allow me to share our mission and vision in the next few minutes. Filipino Science Hub is an online platform founded by our CEO, Filipino scientist, Dr. Jeffrey Camacho-Bonquin back in 2012. Currently, we are a registered nonprofit organization based in Houston, Texas, United States. Our mission is to promote STEM education and the culture of research among students and teachers in the Philippines and abroad. Our current global leadership team is comprised of volunteer Filipino scientists, seasoned STEM educators, and business executives across the globe. Our vision is to see a technology and innovation-driven Philippines, and we believe that this can be achieved by creating a new generation of well-rounded Filipino STEM enthusiasts. The vision is being carried out via our two major programs, the PhilSci-Hub Ed program and the PhilSci-Hub Research University. Through PhilSci Hub Ed, we are able to empower and support our teachers by strengthening STEM fundamentals education. We believe that this is important because the more equipped our STEM educators are, the more they can inspire students to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The other major program that drives our vision forward is PhilSci Hub Research University. This is where we provide tools for fundamentals of research and bring practicing scientists closer to the educational sector. Our official website is www.philscihub.com. This is where you can access all our materials such as webinars, tutorials, modules, virtual lab, and features, all of which are free. We are also present in several social media platforms, so follow us wherever you are most active on to get updated with our web events. Again, thank you for being with us this morning. To officially start our webinar, I would like to turn the virtual floor over to our host today.
Okay, magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Good morning to everyone in the Philippines. We're excited to have this session. And so with me is Mr. JP Onya, dialing in all the way from Finland. We woke up very early today. Alas 4 po ng imedya, so 4 a.m. in the morning.
4 a.m.
Session. And I would like to very briefly introduce myself. So I am Jeffrey Bunkin. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Filipino Science Hub. I am a Filipino scientist based here in Houston, Texas. And so for today, we're excited to have this session focused on providing or introducing some essential skills that high school students should have for them to be able to successfully come up and implement a scientific research project. So JP, just a very quick question before we get started. How excited are you to have this session?
I'm very excited kasi ang mga audience natin today are high school students who are just learning how to carry out a research project, and hopefully maturuan natin sila on the proper ways and give them top tips in carrying out science investigatory projects at high school level.
All right. And so with that, so we just like to set the tone sa simula pa lang. So this is very informal, mga students, So don't treat this like a typical lecture sa class that, kailangan matakot kayo sa teacher. So yung approach namin ni Kuya JP this is going to be very informal. This is quite conversational. In the introductory video, it said that there's going to be like a Q&A at the very end. So but we're changing our approach this time. So what JP and I did was that we decided that for our content today, we would break up the talk into several segments, and in between those segments, we will conduct some Q&A. So every once in a while, we'll set up about 5 to 10 minutes for questions. We're 5 to 10 minutes for questions. So we truly look forward to your participation. So ang gusto namin mangyari dito is that you don't only get information from us, but we would also like to learn about your experience sa high school, lalong-lalo na sa pag-conduct ng science research or science investigatory project. So yeah, we hope that you educate us in as much as we educate you, because if we learn more about your experiences, JP and I and the rest of the team will be more effective at coming up with contents that would help you in your research journey. All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So may mga questions kayo, you can just type it in the chat box. So kayo hindi yung magtanong, lagyan mo lang. And then during the discussion, as we go along, itatanong natin yung mga type nyo, the questions. Here and also on YouTube. So I still don't see any.
Yep. So we have more than 100 sa Zoom, and then we have about 60 sa YouTube. So we're monitoring both spaces now as we go.
Yeah.
So You're also free to ask your questions live during the Q&A, but that's going to be specific to our Zoom participants. May nagtaas na ng kamay. Yeah. And then for those of you who are actually more into, like verbally communicating your questions, that's also welcome. So we would like to encourage participation, active participation in this. All right? Okay, and by the way, one more thing. This session is scheduled to run for a course of 3 hours, so up until 1 p.m. sa Philippines. So if you're nearing your lunchtime, it's okay if you grab food and you actually listen in while you're eating. Medyo mahaba-haba ang session natin dito. And JP and I are going to be covering 3 big topics for today. And so the reason why we gave emphasis to having Q&As and between topics is that since medyo rich, marami tayong aaralin or pag-uusapan, mahalaga that we actually get to address any misconceptions, misunderstanding, if things are not clear as we go, instead of waiting for, like the very end to answer all of those questions. So we would like to address your concerns and questions as they come.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let me share my screen first. GP, can you see my screen now? All right. Okay. So students, we're very happy to have this session. So our session for today is, I think JP, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like the second session that we have dedicated for high school students. The first of which was a research camp for biology students, for high school students. But this is the very first research training program that we're conducting specific for high school students.
Yeah. Aside from the research university campaign where we dedicated like those specific sections lang for high school students.
Yeah. And so let me also just say that JP and I have been doing this, have been delivering this portfolio of training programs over the past almost 4 years now. So we started in 2020 and 2023 is about to end. And this has been something that has reached quite far across the Philippines. But then yung approach namin this time ni JP is quite different in that we're not making this yung formulaic na lecture that you would experience when it comes to research. So the focus here is not really on like, okay, defining all of those research terms, but the focus is on essential skills. So skills that you would learn as you perform your high school research projects. And these are actually skills that are transferable. So meaning after high school, if you pursue a non-STEM major, you would still be able to use all of these skills that you'll learn from this session. So, but for today, to be very specific, we're gonna touch on the topics of ideation, review of literature, and study design. But then the sequence is gonna be quite different this time. So we're gonna cover ideation first, and then JP is gonna cover study design or experimentation.
Yes.
And that's for the reason that high school students, your first exposure to some of the essential steps in scientific research actually starts with experimentation. So before tayo natin pag-usapan yung review of literature and how you can actually pitch or propose your ideas, let's actually try to tie up what you have learned from high school laboratory experiments with what JP is gonna be discussing in terms of how you design your experiments and very important practices that you have to keep in mind as you perform your study. All right?
All right.
Okay,
Excited
so,
na rin ako ng YouTube, nakikita ko. So,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Yeah, so again, like we look forward to your participation. No? So huwag kayong mahiya. Mga kuya nyo kami. All right, so but let me just like give you an idea, a brief introduction of myself. So I am Jeffrey Gutkin, as I mentioned earlier. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I studied in UP and I took up chemistry for my undergraduate degree. And then after working in the Philippines for a couple of years, after finishing my college degree program, I went on and moved to Canada to pursue my graduate degree in chemistry. So I was in Canada for about 4 years, and then after that, I forged like my career in research and development across different areas. So over the past 14 years, I have navigated different job roles in academia, in government research, and as well as in industry, so meaning corporate research and development. And over the course of those 14 years, I have already published more than about like 16 international peer-reviewed publications. I have also come up with about like 25 inventions or more. They're all covered in granted and pending patents since. And so what you're gonna experience or the things that you'll learn from me and from JP for today is essentially a distillation of these years of experiences. So more practical, hindi to yung binasa lang din namin sa book and then ibibigay namin sa inyo. So we're gonna make it as practical and as pragmatic as possible. Kasi that's how we should be doing science. What you learn in class, you should be applying outside. All right. But then, actually, before tayo magpunta dun sa talk, siguro just very quickly, I would just like to scan the room, no? So, ilan dito sa inyo ang high school students? Makikita thumbs up nga.
Makikita thumbs up.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna give it a couple of minutes, no, for us to count ilan yung high school students natin. So mukhang actual majority na about may mga nagbababa na ng kamay, no. So madami. Meron po ba ditong okay, so next question naman, meron po ba ditong high school research advisors? Sino po dito ang high school research advisors? Okay, mukhang meron tayong mga teachers na sinamahan yung mga students nila. Welcome po to the session. To be honest, like thinking about before a few minutes before the session, that's also like one thing that I was hoping to see that the teachers would actually come here, because what we teach the students hopefully would also connect to the teachers para kumbaga they see things in the same light. All right? Okay, now question naman, meron po ba ditong hindi students and hindi teacher pero nakikimarites lang kasi passionate sa research? Ay, meron. Yung po bang pagtawang yan ay admission? All right, so it's good to know the audience. So it seems like a majority of our students are actually from high school, and then we have some advisors as guests. So before we talk about research and ideation, what JP and I recognized over the course of doing this for over 3 years was the importance of making sure that we have a leveled understanding of research. What is it really about, and what's its definition? So for the next siguro 5 to 10 minutes, we will define terms for you. Because it's very important that you understand this. Like as you course through your high school experience, your college experience, if some of you would decide to become scientists in the future, you will come across these terms. And minsan nakakalito yan. And admittedly, most of these terms only became clear to me years after I finished my PhD. Diba? Medyo ang tagal na proseso nun. So I only learned it as I was growing in these areas. But then we're gonna siguro address we will address those challenges or barriers para sa inyo, para bata pa lang kayo naiintindihan nyo na tong mga bagay na to. So okay, so what are the terms that we're gonna define sa first topic natin, sa first section na ating talk? It's scientific inquiry, scientific research, the scientific method, and then research and development, because these terms like typically get used in conversations Some of them are loosely used interchangeably. So we have to make sure that you have an understanding of what those are. So the first term that I would like to define is the term scientific inquiry. So scientific inquiry, as it's defined here, is that it encompasses the entire spectrum of questioning, exploring, and seeking answers about the world around us. So this is an overarching or broad term, no? So napakalawak na salita nito. So it covers formal or informal pursuit of knowledge. So meaning, if you go outside and you observe your environment and you notice that, okay, there's something weird. O bakit yung ibon na yun, yung prutas lang na yun or yung bulaklak lang na yun ang pinupuntahan or nilalapitan? Is there reason behind it? So you asking that question after an observation is already a form of scientific inquiry. All right. Or, okay, you're looking at a specific gadget or a specific hand tool that you have to use for some home improvement projects. Okay, like how does this tool work? Like even like understanding like the mechanism by which the design of that tool translates to functionality and or explanation as to how things work, that is already a form of scientific inquiry, you know. But then, meron ding mas formal na form of scientific inquiry, which we typically actually practice like in school and as we navigate our professional careers. And that is going to be scientific research. So scientific research is a subset of scientific inquiry. And itong scientific inquiry, before we became aware that there is such a term, this was actually the foundation upon which we developed scientific research and the term the scientific method. All right? So pag sinabi ng teacher nyo, oh, we're gonna venture into scientific inquiry, pwedeng itanong sa kanila, ay, ano pong extent ng gagawin natin? Are we just gonna observe and ask questions? Are we gonna do research? So again, this is a broad term. Okay, next. The second term is scientific research. So scientific research is definition from Cornell University, which I think like is a good one, and I adapted it here. So it says that scientific research is a systematic way to directed towards better scientific knowledge or understanding of a topic. Okay, so I gave emphasis to a couple of phrases there, no? Systematic way. So meaning there is a logical sequence of steps. Okay, systematic way. And then perform to gain knowledge or improve our understanding of a topic. So a scientific research is directed to a chosen topic. You know, so what that means is that you are actually working on a focused activity around a topic, and then it's actionable. So meaning when you choose a particular topic, you would also know, or you would have an idea of how you are going to gather the answers. So that's what's different about, you know, like just like asking questions and wondering and using your imagination. Scientific research is you identify a problem or you identify a question or a set of questions, and then you are performing a systematic way of getting answers or coming up with explanations to those questions. Okay? So that's scientific research. So I would also like to emphasize that typically when you perform scientific research, you formulate multiple questions. So it could be just one question, but then typically a research project involves like 2, 3, or more research questions that you have to answer. I know. And then so what process do we use to answer those research questions? So we answer those research questions through the scientific method. No? So again, so scientific inquiry, a subset of scientific inquiry is scientific research. And if you perform scientific research, you typically have 2, 3, or more questions. And what you do or what you perform to answer those specific questions is scientific method. All right. So the scientific method, as defined, is a structured step-by-step approach we follow to answer questions, and we practice the scientific method in conducting research. I went circular on that because we cannot emphasize this enough. So that there is the reason why if you're wondering, sa first year high school science subject ninyo, you were taught the scientific method, and then typically what follows is during your first 3 years, so first, second, and third year, you are asked to perform experiments in class now. Perform this experiment in chemistry, perform this experiment in general chemistry, in biology. So the reason why over the course of your first 3 years in class, you are subject to those experiments is those experiments are opportunities for you to practice the scientific method. Okay, practice kayo na practice over the first 3 years. And then, if you notice, sa fourth year ninyo, that's when you do your capstone, di ba? Your capstone project. So meaning you're performing research sa fourth year or sa last year ninyo sa junior high or last year ninyo sa senior high. And that is based on the assumption that you had 3 years to practice performing experiments. So meaning, if you're conducting research a fourth year and you have to answer 4 or 5 research questions, you should at least be able to set up 5 different sets of experiments to get answers. So you practice the first 3 years, and then you put everything, all of your learnings together to perform research. So ganun yung structure niyan. Okay? So if I may map everything together, this is how it looks like. So your big box here is scientific inquiry, and within it are different ways of practicing it. There are formal ways, like which is scientific research, that we perform in school and in our professional careers, and there are also like some informal ways of doing it that people might not be aware that they're already doing now. And within scientific research, you have to answer at least one research question, and what you use and what you perform to answer those research questions is what we call the scientific method. So again, you should keep this, you should imprint this map in your head because this is how everything ties together. Now, I'm actually going to go a few slides back because I would also like to touch on the terms development and research and development. So going back to the definition, because you would always encounter this, no, parang, oh, scientists performing research and development, or yung acronym that R&D is a very famous term, no? But then do we really understand what it means? So a slide prior, we mentioned that research is a pursuit or a systematic way by which we gather up answers to questions. So that's research. So we're trying to get lessons or explanations to our questions. No? And then the term development means the knowledge that we learn from research. So kung ano natutunan natin sa research, we apply those learnings for us to come up with new solutions or with technology. So kung anong natutunan nyo sa research, when you apply it to come up with a solution or a new product, that's the development part. No? And then if you put everything together, research and development, meaning you study to get answers to a specific problem, and then you apply those lessons to come up with solutions or products. So altogether, that is the process of research and development. So kung anong natutunan nyo sa school, if you apply it outside, that in a way is a good analogy for research and development. All right? And if I would map everything together for you, this is how it looks like. So scientific inquiry, that's what you get trained to do in school, no? So start with scientific method, perform research, capstone projects sa high school. If you go to college and you study, you pursue a STEM major, and then after that, you become a scientist or an engineer and an innovator, you would perform scientific inquiry on a daily basis. And then if you apply those learnings and develop something, the product of it is innovation. So innovation meaning these are the products of research and development. And so yung mga cellphone na ginagamit nyo ngayon, this application, Zoom, YouTube, all of these virtual platforms that enable for us to be able to communicate and learn together, these are products of innovation. So dito nyo dapat makikita yan that if in the future you become like the best engineers and scientists of the Philippines, dapat ito yung goal natin, no? Goal natin is makapag-produce tayo ng mga technologies that would put the Philippines in the world map na, okay, this technology was developed by a Filipino and it's helping build the Philippine economy. All right. So one more thing that I would like to share is that research and development is a very important area in the Philippines. So what I'm sharing you with, like what I'm showing you here, are excerpts of what the Department of Science and Technology of the Philippines rolled out. So these are messages that come with their Science for Change program. So yung DOST natin sa Pilipinas, they said that research and development has always been an imperative. So meaning kailangan ginagawa natin ito, no? And why is it very important? Because it is through research and development that we can resolve challenges as a nation. So yung mga big problems natin, ano? And then this is also, like, it is through research and development that we can come up with knowledge-driven solutions and evidence-based answers. So yung example na ibibigay namin sa inyo is during the pandemic, ano? So the pandemic hit the Philippines and the entire world in 2020. Yung ability of our country to pick ano ba yung bakuna, what vaccine are we gonna give our citizens, how are we gonna do quarantine. So all of those solutions that our country's leaders came up with are also takeaways from products of research and development. You know, so again, knowledge-driven solutions and evidence-based answers. And this is something that we need to sustain. So meaning, meron tayong mga scientists ngayon, but then we have to make sure na marami pang scientists ang mga susunod. Ano? All right. And then, this is one very important set of information that your Kuya JP and I would like to share with you. Most especially because you are the right audience for this. So, noong 2018, UNESCO performed a study internationally and they made recommendations to specific countries. No? Ang recommendation nila sa Pilipinas, ang sabi nila, para daw yung paglago ng at pag-unlad ng Pilipinas ay masustain natin, para magtuloy-tuloy yung pag-unlad ng Pilipinas, kailangan daw natin ng 380 Filipino scientists sa kada 1,000,000 Pilipino. Yun yung kailangan. But nung taon na iyon, we only had 189 Filipino scientists sa kada 1,000,000 Pilipino. So we didn't even have half. Wala pa tayo sa kalahati nung kailangan na bilang ng scientists. And kung ikukumpara natin ang Pilipinas dun sa neighboring Southeast Asian countries natin, unfortunately, sobra tayong napag-iwanan. Like yung Singapore, which is a very rich and napaka-maunlad na bansa, Singapore is very small, no? Magugulat kayo, napakaliit na bansa niya, napaka-konti ng tao. But then, they had, in 2018, 6,900 scientists sa kada 1,000,000 Singaporeans. Yung Malaysia at Thailand, meron silang approximately 2,000 and 1,000 scientists sa kada 1,000,000 ng kanilang population. So dito medyo kulang na kulang tayo. And this is the reason why we're having training sessions like this para sa mga high school students, because as early as now, we would like to make it clear to all of you that kulang na kulang tayo ng mga scientists sa Pilipinas, and we're hoping that a good number of you in this session will strive or will take an interest at least in careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Kasi kailangan namin na mas dumami pa tayo. No? Tayo mga Filipino scientists na re-represent ng Pilipinas when it comes to the field of research and development. So please consider a career in STEM in the future. Sa mga nag-iisip dyan. All right. So, 5-minute Q&A. Do you have any questions about the definition of scientific inquiry? Anything that you would like for us to clarify, siguro?
I don't see any questions here from YouTube.
Yeah. Dito sa Zoom, meron ba kayong mga question?
Yeah.
Sabi ko sa inyo, informal lang tayo dito. O, di ba nagkakape ako? So, kapihan muna tayo.
Kapihan session.
And all right. So yeah, JP, anything that you would like to add, like from the perspective of, okay, siguro ito magandang tanong, no? Gawin natin tong development chat rin or career guidance. So JP, ikaw sa experience mo, when did you figure out that you want to be a chemist and then after that a scientist?
Actually, third year pa lang, nung pinag-iisip na kami ng career or course ng college, parang hindi ko pa rin alam kung ano yung gusto ko. Pero yung mga kapatid ko kasi, they all took engineering courses. So sabi ko, masyadong matagal yung 5 years. Sabi ko, ano na lang, 4 years na lang, pero science pa rin. So kaya kinuha ko yung chemistry program sa UPLB. But then, at that time, hindi ko pa alam talaga kung ano yung careers na pupunta ako after college. And then, doon ko lang na-figure out kung nasa UP na ako. And then, after I graduated, what are the opportunities? Kasi hindi talaga tayo namulat or na-expose doon sa like, ano ba yung career options for scientists or for scientists like us, or kung ano man yung ina-aspire natin maging after graduation. So, hindi malinaw sa akin kung ano yung mga career options. So, kaya nga natin ito ginagawa so that na-expose yung mga estudyante on ano ba ka-importante and gaano ka-crucial yung career sa science and ano ba yung pwede mo lang kahantungan after graduation.
And then, sa mga students natin sa audience, ipagmamalaki ko muna yung kaibigan ko. Actually, I treat, like, si JP parang kapatid ko yan. Parang nakababatang kapatid ko yan. So, si JP is also from Batangas, just like me. Nag-aral yan sa UP ng chemistry rin. No? Doon kami nag-meet kasi magkasama kami sa dorm. Dorm mates kami sa UP. So, after finishing up his chemistry degree sa UP, he worked for Petron.
For 7 years. Yeah.
Gasoline na niloload up nyo sa mga jeep nyo or sa mga kotse nyo, more likely at some point,
dumaan sa kamay ko yan.
Dumaan sa kamay na yan, tinest niya yung mga yan. And then after that, JP decided to siguro talikuran muna yung kanyang industrial career and he earned a scholarship through the Erasmus program.
Yes.
So pumunta si
So
JP.
2016, I came to Europe to do my master's studies in analytical chemistry. So I started in Estonia in 2016. So kung hindi nyo alam kung nasaan yung Estonia, hindi ko rin alam kung nasaan dati. Alam siya ng Russia. So yung area na tinatawag siyang Baltic. So nasa north na siya ng Europe. So I spent 1 year there to study metrology. So yung metrology, isa siyang branch ng science dealing with measurements and analytical techniques, measurements per se. And then after that, I went to Finland to study electrochemistry naman. Dun sa part pa rin ng program na yun. So, and after that, I graduated from master's and then I did a PhD. So parang nagstay na ako sa academia at that time kasi nga parang naisip ko parang mas gusto ko na yung academic career versus sa tawag dito industrial career kasi nga I'm seeing both, no? So sa academic career, your mind is always active, you're always thinking. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na yung sa industry kasi hindi ako R&D doon sa kasi a lot of industrial companies have their own research development labs. So doon pwede mo pa rin ma-practice lahat ng analytical thinking mo. But academic career seemed to be more attractive to me. So that's why I did my PhD and then went on. After I graduate, I'm about to graduate to PhD, but now I'm working as a researcher naman sa isang research facility here sa Finland. So Ayun, ganun yung naging trajectory ko, no? And it's not very different from Doc Jeffrey's scientific career. So right now, parang nag-full circle ka, no? You started with,
So, umiikot lang ako. Nag-start ako sa industry after college, and then I went to academia, and then nag-work ako sa US government,
yeah,
laboratory, and then I went back to industry, ano. So, but then yung core similarities of all of them was that I was performing a research and development job. So
yeah.
lahat and yun. But then recently, hindi ko na alam.
Mhm.
Because I'm
Yeah.
doing more innovation leadership. So what I do now is that I lead projects and I have scientists who are part of my team who are doing much of the technical work. So ako na yung nag-lead ng mga geeks, ng mga nerds. So na yung ginagawa.
Mhm.
Which is also a very important role when you are performing research and development. So the reason why your Kuya JP and I are talking about this is that we would also like to share with you that what's common between our journeys was that when we were in high school, what we're doing now, we didn't imagine. Yeah, so ayan, medyo mag-mute lang tayo. No? Yun. So kami ni JP, we didn't have it figured out sa high school. What I wanted in high school, high school back then was that there was a refinery in Batangas. Ang gusto ko lang noon, magtrabaho dun sa refinery and then umuwi sa bahay namin everyday and kumain ng sariwang isda kasi tabing dagat kami. But then, one very important learning in hindsight was that when we ventured into a STEM career, and if you really love it, it opens a lot of doors. So yeah, again, what I did, I studied chemistry in UP. After that, I taught. Nagturo ako sa UP for 1 year. And then what I saw there was, most of those UP graduates, those who are passionate about science and research, they would go and study abroad. So punta silang abroad, mag-aral sila doon. Some of them come back to teach in UP and to work in R&D companies in the Philippines. And then some of them would decide to stay abroad to represent the Philippines in the international research and innovation stage. So there's a lot of those paths that kapag nakita mo na when you're in that environment, you'll get inspiration na, ay, pwede pala to. Pwede pala yun. And that's the theme of our lives. Like as we venture into a new chapter and we grow in it, so there are failures and successes. I also would like to highlight that there are failures and successes. Doing R&D is a very difficult job because you have to get used to failing on a daily basis. More likely you will experience failure. Some of your experiments will not work. If you do graduate studies, siguro statistics, for every 100 experiments that you will perform, about only 90 of them will work. Or sometimes all 100 of them will not work. And you have to, be very resilient. But then, if you, the skills that you learn from performing research, you can apply everywhere you go. Whether you tackle a business job, whether you become a politician, whether you become, a communication expert, the skills that you learn from performing research are transferable. They're gonna set you up for success. All right. And later during the Q&A, if you have some more questions around these topics, we will adjust them. So by the way, JP, quick question for you.
Yeah.
What time from now do you have to leave?
I have probably in 45 minutes.
Okay, 45
Yeah.
minutes. So I have 45 minutes to cover ideation, and then after that, JP will take the floor, and then
Yeah.
it's going to be me again. All right.
Okay.
All right. So we have already discussed this slide. So what's the purpose of performing high school research? And that is for you to practice, designing experiments to gather questions, gather answers to your questions. So for today and tomorrow, this is what we're going to be covering. So what JP and I will do is that we will talk about the different steps in the research process. So ideation, literature search, experimentation, data processing, conclusions, and thesis or communicating your research work. But then emphasis namin is on the skills. the skills that you have to learn as you perform each of these steps. So for today, we're covering ideation, literature search, and experimentation, and the skills that we would like for you to think about and to develop within yourself would be creativity, the ability to formulate questions and to come up and scope out, okay, like what is it really that I'm trying to answer? Because that's a very difficult exercise. And then third, for experimentation, we would like for you to learn the skills around design and strategy. And specifically, ay yung mga talking points dun sa bottom, how it translates to what you have to learn and perform as a research student would be how you select a research topic in high school. Secondly, how can you formulate the right research questions that you will tackle in your capstone project? And then last, okay, how do you design specific experiments to come up not just with answers, but be confident in your answers. So to come up with high quality answers or data to validate your hypothesis or your research questions. All right? Okay, but then what's very important, you know, and what's highly needed for you to really or to truly have a very good and successful research and experience in high school is by establishing a very good relationship with your research advisor. And this is actually one of the slides that we really wanted to show you. And para sa mga teachers or research advisors natin sa audience, ano, so it's very important that we understand this. So as research advisors, your advisor should cover two main things. So the first of which is that they should provide guidance in how the research project is designed and executed. So meaning how you choose an idea, how you design your study, and how you perform the study safely, right? And then second, your teacher should teach you skills. So it shouldn't just be a matter of like, okay, gawin nyo to because this is a requirement. So during the journey of performing your research, you should also be able to ask your teachers, okay, am I doing this the right way? Are there other ways by which I can perform this? Or what lessons should I be taking from this experience? So dapat you should have that relationship with your advisor. Ano. And then on the flip side, kayo namang mga students, what's very important is that again, yung research nyo sa high school, this is an opportunity for you to practice. So meaning yung level of expectation naman is for you to not come up with a Nobel Prize winning study. You know, like if you can, by all means, we are not discouraging you, ano, but then what's very important is that, you know, the purpose of high school research is for you to learn how to generate ideas. So if you are able to come up with a good research idea in high school, that's already satisfying 50% of the expectation, ano. But then second, and very importantly, since this is, you know, like an opportunity for you to practice, you should strive hard for you to be able to design and execute your research project. So meaning kayo yung nag-isip, kayo yung nag-design, and then ideally, kayo rin yung gagawa. No? So you're really involved in the process. So because there are certain times when yung capstone project, lalong-lalo na for science investigatory projects, it's done for a competition. So minsan, so since ang goal is to win, minsan nawawalan na rin ng opportunity yung students to be very creative because like sobrang involved yung teachers to the point na halos sila na yung gumagawa. So that meets the purpose of performing research kasi hindi natututunan ng students yung skill. So again, sa mga students who are in the audience today, make sure that you really try to be as involved as possible and that you learn all of these skills. Okay? So now we're moving on to ideation, and I would just like to share this definition or like this quote about ideation from Edward de Bono. So he said that ideas are the currency of success. They separate you from competition. This might sound like a business definition, so it separates you from competition, but in life that is actually quite true. So in the context of performing science investigatory projects in high school, di ba sabi nga, typically, nasa science fair yan. So you have to win. You have to differentiate yourself from the rest. So there's an element of competition right there. So if you can come up with a unique and a really valuable idea that is very important and when you tackle your professional careers after you finish your undergrad, lahat ng klase ng work would require some form of ideation, ano. Hindi man siya formalized in the sense that, oh yeah, you came up with that idea because hindi naman R&D yung work mo. But then there are opportunities for you to come up with creative ideas. So whatever it is that you decide to do after your college degree programs would require ideation. And so now we're actually pivoting to the question of why is ideation hard? Okay, so that is the typical question that we get asked, like, bakit po ang hirap? And going back to his like history about like 12 years ago, the reason why JP and we actually started this platform was because we did a seminar, training course sa mga high school teachers sa Batangas City. And this is for, again, for teachers, ano? Nagulat kami ni JP kasi ang tanong lagi sa amin ng mga teachers ay, sir, bigyan nyo kami ng idea. Bigyan nyo po kami ng topic. And that was quite alarming because since ang mga teachers natin hindi sila sanay na mag-generate ng ideas, what more sa mga students, ano? So that's the reason why we are doing this, because our goal here, our expected outcome is that after the session, you will have an idea of how to generate, you'll be able to generate ideas and you'll be comfortable doing it. Now, so these are like some of the typical barriers or yung mga hadlang or nagpapahirap sa pag-come up ng ideas. And I would like to unpack some of them. So great ideas are hard to find, which is actually true because meron kasi tayong notion na dapat kapag nag-come up ako ng idea, dapat original. No? So yun yung laging first mental barrier na, ay baka hindi to original, baka nagawa na to. And ito yung una naming i-debunk sa inyo kasi there are different ways by which you can be creative. Secondly, hindi natin alam kung paano. So how do we identify the problems that we are solving? And this is the reason why we're also having this session kasi kami ni Kuya JP nyo, magbibigay kami ng tips on how do you really come up with a process or to generate ideas? Kung hindi kayo sanay, where do you start? Ano? And then third, there's always that anxiety around baka pangit yung idea ko. O baka sabihin akong ano ay medyo walang sense yung idea na binibring up ko. So it's also a question of yun bang environment natin, yung klase ba natin, is it valuing ideas or diversity of thoughts? So ito sa mga students, no, I would also like to encourage you when you're in a group session or group setting and people are coming up with ideas, try to encourage people to communicate their ideas. Wag niyo i-dismiss, wag niyo sabihin, ay pangit yan, ay hindi yan mangyayari, no? So it's very important that we respect, and we create a space where your fellow students, your friends, your relatives, you can freely talk about ideas because to be honest, the most creative ideas out there are actually forged by teams. So meaning, nag-uusap-usap sila, they are connecting the dots. So medyo bihira yung case of the lone scientist o yung scientist lang nagpakadalubhasa and then he transformed the world. In modern times, usually, the most creative ideas come from groups. The most impactful innovation are developed by teams. So collaboration is very important. You should be able to work with your peers in coming up with ideas. And then, yung fourth element naman that typically makes ideation very intimidating is the question of, can I implement this? Di ba yung, pwede ko bang gawin to? Ayun. So yun yung mga tanong na dapat nating masagot. Alright? And JP, would you prefer to talk now or?
No, it's okay.
So are you sure? Okay, I still have 30 minutes. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, okay, pasok tayo sa first skill, creativity. So, what is creativity? This is very important for ideation. So, creativity is defined as the tendency to generate or recognize ideas alternatives or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and others. So, nakita nyo, broad definition yan, hindi lang yan para sa science. So, it's all about recognizing ideas and alternatives or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems. So, but then, what's very important is that yung creativity, kasi hindi lang siya mental exercise na, ay mag-uusap tayo tapos mag-iisip lang ako. Tapos, ay ito yung idea ko, ganyan. So, yung creativity, it's not just a mental process, but then you measure creativity based on the outcome. Ano ba yung impact ng idea mo if you implement it? That's how you measure creativity. Hindi lang yung, what are the possibilities? And then, i-chismis ko lang yan, imamaritas ko lang yan, and then that's it. Creativity is based on the outcome. So, ano yung impact kapag ginawa mo yung idea mo? Alright. So, creativity is an essential skill, and the reason why it's difficult is because it requires a bunch of different elements. So, creativity requires change, no? So, for you to be very creative, you also have to be able to recognize. So, if you're looking at your cell phone, what are the elements of your cell phone that you like? Ano ba yung features that you don't like? And what elements of your phone do you want to change? So, dapat ganun yung mental exercise. You keep questioning things. You don't only observe, but you try to make sense of why is this good? Why is this not good? What's missing here? So again, it's creativity starts by observing and formulating questions. And sabi ko nga kanina, mahirap siya because it requires for you to challenge or reject the status quo. Solution, what do you do with it? Like, are you gonna formulate an idea that would not only challenge, okay, like that should not be happening, and then are you gonna come up with ideas that would look for solutions for it not to happen? So again, it requires challenging existing situations and also, like coming up with solutions like to change those. But then again, you would formulate ideas, no? And you would perform studies and you will try to answer your questions. One very important fact na medyo binanggit na namin kanina ni Kuya JP nyo is just because you attempted to study something doesn't mean that you will get the answers. Now, there are times that you would perform research and your data are not going to be consistent with what you expect. Okay, so it requires risk-taking and failing. And at the end of the day, after you perform your 1-year research project sa high school, it's okay kapag hindi nyo nakuha yung solution. So, we're making this clear sa inyo as early as now. Just because you perform research doesn't ensure you that you're gonna achieve your goals, that you're gonna get to the answers that you're expecting. Alright? Kasi kapag ang expectation ng mga teachers nyo ay dapat makuha nyo yung sagot, minsan it actually forces students to do things quite sloppily or pinipili lang yung data. Like that's not good. That's unethical. So it's very important that you perform the experiments the best way that you can. Whatever comes of it, like you respect what nature actually prefers to do. All right? And then, creativity is also very difficult because it requires dealing with constraints. So meaning, meron kayong plano, but can you implement those plans? If you have 5 questions and it would require 5 years for you to perform the study to answer all of those questions, but then 1 year lang kayo magre-research, then you also have to figure out that since kulang ako sa gamit, kulang ako sa oras, what would be a healthy scope of work that I can do within a given year and given the resources that I have. Okay, so this is the reason why this is a fairly challenging activity. So siguro question, ay sir, wala po sa lahi namin yan. Wala po sa lahi namin yung creative. No? So it's a question of, are creative people born or can creativity be learned? So to be honest, creativity can be learned. And what's required really is that you practice. So the reason why we are bringing the concept of creativity forward and as early as the high school training. So kaya yung una naming test subject dito is that you have to know that this is a skill that you can learn by practicing. No? So dapat hindi kayo matakot to come up with ideas because if you do it now, habang teenagers kayo, you can just like imagine 20, 30 years from now, with kung ganun katagal yung practice ninyo, you will be experts. You'll be among the most creative people out there. All right. And then, what are the different types of creativity? So dito na natin ipapasok yung tatlong klase ng creativity. So we have a form of creativity called creation. The second type is synthesis. And then the third type is modification. And so we will unpack like some of these and I will provide you with some examples on how you can actually practice these creativity. So let's start with creation. So creation is a form of creativity that generates outcomes that nobody has ever thought of or actualized before. So meaning, ito yung sobrang original na discoveries or creative ideas. So example, the very first person who came up with the concept of the internet, that is a form of creation. There are some new methods or biological approaches for us to come up with treatments of diseases at the DNA level, like CRISPR, yung mga kauna-unahang nakakome up ng ideas na yan and inventions na yan. So those are the people who are able to practice creation. But then, ang gusto namin ding ipaintindi sa ating mga estudyante is that most people believe that creation is the only form of creativity. Di ba sinabi ko nga kanina sa simula na, ay baka kaya takot yung mga students na mag-come up ng idea is because the concern is that my idea might not be original. So it might not be original, but then that's actually not the only form of creativity. You can practice other forms of creativity. And to be honest, sa high school level, bihirang-bihira ang nakaka-come up ng creation level of creativity. So we're gonna have to talk about the other forms of creativity. And like for high school research advisors who are in the call, we would also like to make it clear that when you set expectations sa mga estudyante, we don't expect for them to come up with the most original research because that's the highest level of creativity. It takes practice. It takes time for us to be able to reach that level. So again, let's make sure that we communicate our expectations clearly sa mga students natin. All right. And then, so yung kasabihan nga nila sa English that let's walk before we run. So lumakad muna tayo bago tayo tumakbo. So let's start with baby steps. So let's start with the lower forms or other forms of creativity. So yung second example ibibigay ko sa inyo is synthesis. Ano ba yung synthesis? Is a form of creativity. So synthesis, so it's a form of creativity that involves two or more ideas or technologies being combined into a new idea. So meaning, yung mga pagsasamahin yung elements ng inyong idea, nagawa na ng iba. So meaning, hindi kayo yung original. But then what makes your idea original is pag pinagsama niyo yung dalawang elements na yun, you're coming up with a new application. You're coming up with a new solution. You're coming up with a new answer, to specific questions. So again, so you're leveraging or you're taking advantage of the work that other people have already done. So again, hindi mo kailangan maging sobrang original. Kailangan lang brainy ka. Paano ko gagamitin yun to come up with something that's unique that I can actually use to generate value para sa society, to contribute. All right? So example yan. So we have mRNA research, for example, and then nanotechnology. So, yung COVID vaccine, for example, yung mRNA vaccine, it was a therapeutic approach that was developed back in the 70s and 80s, you know. But then yung issue nila back then was, it works, but then yung pag-deliver ng mRNA sa cell, medyo mahirap siya kasi nadidegrade, nadidecompose, nasisira yung mRNA. So kailangan nila ng, so during the COVID pandemic, they know that this could work, but then the issue is how can they deliver it? How can they stabilize the mRNA para pagpunta dun sa virus, kaya niyang patayin. Ano? So what they thought was that there is a technology, so nanotechnology, so there's a way by which they can they can encapsulate yung mRNA sa loob ng lipid nanoparticles. So when they combined nanoparticle technology or nanotechnology with mRNA technology, they came up with the mRNA vaccine. And this technology had saved lives. And fun fact, yung isa sa mga original na naka-invento ng nanotechnology approach na ginamit sa COVID vaccine ay si scientist na Alright, so again,
I don't know why I can mute them.
or we might be muting them at the same time. Could you try it one more time?
No.
Ayan, medyo, na-mute naman na sila. Alright, so yeah, again, you combine mRNA technology and nanotechnology, the product of it was the COVID vaccine, and it transformed life. So that's a form of synthesis, no? Synthesis. So hindi sila yung original sa mRNA at saka sa nanotechnology. Another example of synthesis was, hindi na-update yung pictures dito, but bear with me. So this year, there was the Regeneron International Science Fair and Science and Engineering Fair. So one of the teams of students that won this competition essentially practiced synthesis. So what they did was they came up with an incubation, a new type of incubator that would improve the hatching of a specific insect, so green lacewing. So it's an insect na kumakain ng mga peste sa farm, na kumakain sa mga peste ng halaman. So what they did was incubation technology, yung incubators, matagal ng technology yan. But what they did was they actually used it to improve yung pag-hatch ng specific insects. And that particular type of research is already being done by a lot of people. But what they did was, okay, this is like an ongoing research, and then this is a technology that can, when combined with that type of research, could really improve yung hatching. So meaning mas mapaparami mo sila. And then, kapag naparami mo, yung insect na yun, yung lacewing, they will eat up yung mga peste. Yung ibang mga insekto kumakain ng mga halaman. And so, what they came up with was a natural solution to plant pests without having to use pesticides or insecticides. O, diba? And these are high school students who did this. So, again, hindi sila yung naka-invento ng pag-study ng insects, hindi sila yung naka-invento ng incubators, but then by recognizing that if you combine those elements to come up with a new solution, they came up with something that was recognized to have agricultural impact. So sa Pilipinas, we're an agricultural country. So like, studies like this you can do at the high school level. But then, again, kailangan isipin nyo, hindi kailangan kayo yung super original. Gamitin nyo yung naaral na ng iba. Okay, so another form of creativity is modification. So modification is really that, like a creativity that involves changing or adding something to an incumbent technology or area of study. So meaning, okay, for example, meron ditong air conditioning. Air conditioning, it's a technology, no? So what do we use it for? So air conditioning is like, a mechanism for us to control temperatures like in spaces. Para palamigin, no? Para ma-maintain natin isang lugar at a specific temperature. So this is like, like a long, and there's a lot of elements around energy when it comes to air conditioning because you manage heat, and then air conditioning consumes energy. So how do you actually make sure that you're able to control the temperatures of certain rooms while not wasting so much energy? And that is like one thing that this student demonstrated, like through the same competition. No? So this student, I think he's based in the US. What he did was he came up with a modification of an air conditioning to make sure that he gets to improve the energy efficiency. So meaning, yung condensate, tanda nyo sa air conditioning, yung tumutulo doon na yung tumutulo doon na water, so it's called condensate. Medyo yung temperature nun mababa. So he just found a way to recirculate para magamit yung lamig ng condensate na yon sa air conditioning para yung energy na kailangan para palamigin yung aircon, bumababa siya. So again, he did not come up with the concept of air conditioning, but what he did was he modified it to improve its performance. So this is a form of modification. So the next time that you are looking for, like looking out and to come up with ideas, this is a way to do it. Just look at what's out there, what's established, and ano ba yung pwede mong baguhin? That is already creativity. And just because binago mo lang or you modified something doesn't mean that what you're coming up with is not important. There is a lot of technologies that you are using right now which are products of either synthesis and modification. Hindi lang yung super original or synthesis. All right. So again, recap, these are the different levels of creativity. So modification, synthesis, and creation. And at the high school level, if you start in modification or synthesis, that is super okay. You can still generate knowledge and value out of performing these, other versions of creativity. All right. So at this point, I would actually like to dedicate, like a few minutes for a Q&A.
Yeah. I can see that we have already one question here from Alessandro Agsangre. And tinatanong niya, ang ibig sabihin po ba ng modification ay improve ang isang bagay by modifying yung bagay na yun?
Yeah. So so that is actually that's a good understanding of it. So
yeah.
And modifying, by the way, so modifying means that you can add or subtract. So pwedeng meron kang idagdag, or pwedeng meron kang bawasin, or pwedeng meron kang, or substitute. So meron kang papalitan.
Yeah.
Again, so those are different ways by which you can modify certain technologies.
Yeah.
So yeah. So kapag nag-isip kayo ng ideas, again, you can build on what others have done. So meaning, tingin lang kayo dyan, ano yung mga gamit na tingin nyo, ay hindi ako satisfied sa performance nito. So kung hindi kayo satisfied sa performance ng isang tool na yon or equipment or gadget, then you look into it. What can you do?
Yeah.
So that's modification. And that should be all okay. So, all right. So siguro question ko lang sa mga students, did this at least address yung concern nyo na, ay, dapat ba original? And ano yung definition ng originality? So, modification, binago mo. So, yung bagong version nun, technically, is quite original. Kasi it's, or unique. Or we can say unique. There are differences that make it better. Better than the older version of it. All right. Do we have questions?
Any questions? Pero nabanggit yung ano ba yung what constitutes originality, di ba? Or kung paano ba natin malalaman kung original ba yung idea natin? You can always just look up, sa Google kung okay, yung idea ko ba, i-type in ko na-invento ko tong isang part na to. You can look it up from the literature and then see if it's already there. Then kung hindi na, edi bago na tayo ng idea.
Yes, that is actually very important. So siguro over the next 10 minutes, papasadahan ko lang very quickly, ano ba yung mga approach on how you can actually choose a topic? And then after that, we're gonna give it to JP para ilatag niya naman, once you have an idea, how do you design an experiment? How do you design an approach to get to the answers? All right? All right. So, students, take note. Ito na yung medyo tutorial part nitong talk na ito. How do you pick a research topic? So, there are what we're gonna show you are certain ways that JP and I have practiced before, but then this is by all means not the only way by which you can identify ideas. So when selecting a research topic, most especially sa high school, gusto lang namin you keep this in mind, that you choose a topic that interests you, that will make an impact. So, dalawang elements doon. Interests you and will make an impact. Bakit kailangan interesting sa iyo yung topic? It's mainly because you're performing it for at least about a year and you're gonna run into challenges. So, if you're not interested and you're having a hard time, more likely you will not be as motivated to power through the challenges and really get it to the finish line. So, dapat gusto nyo yung topic nyo sa research. Secondly, will make an impact. Okay, so when you are performing research, dapat solid sa inyo. It should be clear to you what's the purpose of this. Bakit ko to ginagawa? Anong importance nito? Who will benefit from the knowledge that I will generate from performing this? Dapat klaro yun. So you're not just it's okay to perform research just out of curiosity, but let's also make it a practice that there are people or communities who would benefit from our pursuit of knowledge. So that elevates yung purpose ng pag-perform ng research. All right. So one tool that we recommend that you practice sa high school is mind mapping. So yung key concept dito is that you begin with the end in mind. So meaning, if I'm trying to generate an idea, so say, ako gusto ko pong maging doctor and scientist in the future, no? And gusto kong makakontribute sa area of disease control. So pag-address ng pandemic. So beginning with the end in mind, okay, yun yung intention mo. Ano yung end goal mo? Ano yung gusto mong ma-achieve sa dulo? Gusto mo bang maka-develop ng bagong antiviral drugs? Gusto mo bang maka-develop ng public health strategy sa kung paano natin, kapag nagkaroon ng pandemic sa Pilipinas, paano ba yung response ng mga hospitals? Paano yung response ng community? So that requires research as well. So you have to be very specific about what you want to achieve at the very end. Kasi if you have the intention sa simula, alam mo kung saan mo siya gustong dalhin, it becomes much easier for you to come to plan ano ba yung path, ano ba yung mga dapat kong gawin to achieve the objective or the outcome. So dapat you begin having an idea of what your idea is and what the end goal would be. Okay, mind mapping. And you make it an exercise, you write your thoughts down. Imapa nyo like this, literally do it this way. Para it's clear to you that, okay, these are the possibilities. And then kapag nagawa mo na yung mind mapping, you can do this individually as part of a group. After that, you decide, okay, where should I focus? Because 1 year, I can only do so much. So I can only perhaps cover one possibility. And then kapag na-identify mo na yun, you design your work, which JP will talk about like in a few minutes. All right. And then if, di ba yung sinabi namin kanina, okay, that's mind mapping, siguro it starts with your area of interest. But then pag sinabi niyo sa amin na, Kuya Jeff, Kuya JP, nahihirapan po talaga ako mag-isip. Paano ko po ba, how do I come up with an idea that is relevant to the Philippines or to my community? If you really are in that position and it's very difficult for you to identify a topic, what you do is, you can also go to DOST's website. So what DOST does is that they come up or they roll out what we call Harmonized National Research and Development Agenda. This is an agenda that they send out every 5 years. And what they do there is they specify ano ba yung mga areas that you can perform research and development activities that would help the country. So kung nahihirapan kayo mag-isip, punta kayo sa DOST. Tapos pili na lang kayo doon. Kung ano din yung areas na interested kayo and clear sa inyo na, kapag ginawa ko to, ito yung value sa bansa. Ito yung matutulong ko sa mga kababayan ko. Alright, so there are different sources of inspiration or of ideas. So punta lang kayo dyan. And again, like the value of what JP and I do here is that we are actually exposing you to all these sources of information. All right. So I would just like to share this slide because gusto ko lang din ipakita sa inyo that diba, the way the scientific method is taught to all of you is that, sequence of step, like from identification of the problem all the way to conclusion. And then siguro, hindi ko naman nilalahat, siguro yung introduction sa inyo sa research is that it's also linear. So idea generation, literature search or proposal, experimentation, data collection, data processing, conclusion, and then writing. So siguro nangyayari pa sa dulo. Yung review of literature sa dulo lang ginagawa kapag magsusulat na. What your Kuya JP and I would like to emphasize, ito lang yung matutunan nyo sa dalawang sessions na to. I think you'll be good. Research is not a linear process. So meaning hindi siya follow nyo lang sequentially from steps A to Z. Research, depending on the outcome of the steps, sometimes iterative. So meaning, nag-start ka sa idea, read up ka ng literature to come up with an experimental design, gagawin mo yung experiment. Kapag yung nakukuha mong result does not support your hypothesis, sometimes you have to go back and read the literature. Did I ask my questions the right way? Did I pick is the topic that I picked, is it framed the right way? So, minsan babalik at babalik ka. Pagdating mo sa conclusion at hindi magkatugma yung, again, yung hypothesis sa resulta, you have to go back to the literature again and read. Ano ba yung mga ginawa ng ibang tao para maipaliwanag ko talaga itong mga datos na ito? So again, it's iterative. So minsan babalik ka sa step 1, babalik ka sa middle step, nandun ka na sa dulo, babalik ka pa sa previous step, sa penultimate step. So again, keep this in mind. And when you plan out your experiments for siguro yung 10 months ninyo sa 4th year high school or sa last year niyo sa senior high, make sure that you know that, oh, baka mamaya hindi ko to matapos on time kapag ganito yung approach ko na linear lang. So I have to keep checking the quality of my data and my information. All right. So that's essentially, like an overview of ideation and most importantly, creativity. And so at this point, pupunta naman tayo dun sa part na actually this is a very exciting part because you come up with ideas and you are setting goals. Ano ba yung gusto kong matutunan? So now the question is, how do I get the answers? No? How do I get the answers? So now, papasok tayo dun sa experimentation. So ito naman yung ituturo sa inyo ni Kuya JP ninyo. So like at this point, JP, take the floor.
I don't have any questions, no, pero gusto ko lang dagdagan yung sinabi ni Kuya Jeff kanina na parang when we are trying to come up with a research topic, something that you're interested and something that will give an impact. So we can, regarding sa impact, we can always just like look around our immediate surrounding, our immediate locality, kung ano yung mga bagay that will create an impact or dun sa, let's say, sa local industry dun. Let's say you're living in a coastal community or a farming community. So, ano yung makakatulong dun sa mga tao dun sa area natin? So, we can put our cue from our immediate surroundings in coming up with a research idea kung paano magkakaroon ng definite impact sa ating communities, no matter how small it is. Kasi yung sinasabi ni Doc Jeff, hindi kailangan very high sounding and very parang impressive sounding yung research natin. It just needs to make an impact, a useful impact in our communities.
And JP raised a very important point, no? So sometimes, yung nakasanayan natin, we get ideas by reading the literature or, like going to the internet and looking for databases or looking at the news. But,
or kung ano lang ang uso, di ba?
Yeah, or kung anong uso. But then, again, if you want to come up with something with impact, there's this concept called design thinking. So, basahin niyo yan, design thinking. Yung concept ng design thinking is that you immerse yourself. So, meaning, if halimbawa ako, I grew up in a farming community. Ang gagawin ko, kung gusto ko talaga makaisip ng idea that would have great impact sa community ko, pupunta ako doon sa mga magsasaka at kakausapin ko sila. Ano po ba yung problema ninyo dyan? Saan po ba kayo nahihirapan? Pag sinabi nila sa inyo, dito kami nahihirapan, itong insektong to, kinakain lahat ng bunga ng itinatanim namin. So, makikita mo na, that's a problem. Pero then it'll trigger questions. Ano yung mga peste na yun? Ano yung mga insekto na yun? Ano yung pwede kong gawin para makontrol yung mga peste na yun? So if you approach it that way by immersing yourself, asking the questions, yung stakeholders na tinatawag. So yung stakeholders kasi sila yung makikinabang sa ginagawa mo. Pag pumunta ka sa stakeholders, sinabi nila, Jeff, ito yung kailangan ko. Then madali para sa inyo na, oh, that's a topic. And then from that, kung gusto ko ng solution to address yung pagkapesta ng halaman, I will have to study the literature. Ano ba yung mga pwede kong gawin? And then most importantly, you have to do it. You have to run your experiments. All right. Segue naman
Yeah.
tayo. Experimenting.
Okay. Yeah, so Doc Jeffrey already discussed the ideation process, kung paano natin come up yung research ideas natin. Now, I would like to take the floor and discuss the actual experimentation, kung paano natin masasagot o mafulfill yung ating mga research objectives na tinatawag or research goals. Parang medyo current yung term na goals. Ayan. So, but before I discuss like the details of experimentation, I would just like to introduce the different types of quantitative research. So, dito sa mga high school students natin, yung research can be qualitative or quantitative. So, qualitative, we're just dealing with qualities, perceptions, and usually ito ay area ng like humanities and social sciences. Pero hardcore sciences, usually we're dealing with numbers. So ito yung area or realm ng quantitative research. And under quantitative research, we have four main types of research. Number one is descriptive, and it only like describes what is existing out there or describing characteristics of an existing aspect. Those research subject natin. So correlational research, in-identify naman niya yung relationship between two or more variables. I will give examples later without manipulating it. So parang meron ng existing na variables, I will just study kung may relationship ba between sa mga variables na yun. And then number three is experimental research. So ito yung core yung i-discuss ko today. Experimental research because ito naman yung type of research which determines a causal relationship. So, cause and effect. So, kung binago ko ba yung isang variable na to, may magbabago sa quality ng isang variable. So, ito yung i-discuss ko today, experimental research. And then there's also quasi-experimental research. It investigates causal relationship between variables, but there is no random assignment of experimental subjects. I-compare ko lang siya sa experimental research kasi sa experimental research, you have full control on your subjects. So you're free to assign subjects within control group and the experimental group. Okay? Pero sa quasi-experimental research, wala kang control dun sa subjects. Let's say, for example, you are studying the effectiveness of a specific teaching method sa high school. So, yung mga high school students, existing na sila. No? So, parang nag-study ka ng effectiveness ng isang teaching method, let's say, sa isang group, pero hindi nag-apply sa kabilang group. And those two groups are already existing. So, ang nature ng research mo is quasi-experimental. Because you didn't have any control on which, kung sino mga students yun nasa isang group at sino nasa kabila. So, they're already existing. And that's quasi-experimental research. And I will give you some examples for each one. Okay. So, the research, as I've said, describe lang niya kung ano yung existing na. So, dito sa study na to, this was done in the Mindanao from University of Southeastern Philippines sa Davao City. So parang map out lang nila yung occurrence ng species na to, yung adult odonato species, otherwise known as tupigol sa Tagalog. No? So they just mapped out the occurrence, the distribution and of the species within adult tupigol species dun sa urban wetlands sa Tagum City sa Mindanao. So, parang nag-take lang sila ng samples, so hindi nila ba isa-isa, no? And then they study ano ba yung species, ano ba yung gano'ng karami, and ano yung distribution ng mga species na to. Okay, so ito makikita nyo yung graph na binigyan nila. So ito yung mga species na present dun sa site. So iba-ibang sites to. And then nagbigay lang sila ng head count kung ilan yung na-observe nila na species sa bawat lugar. Okay? So here, makikita natin na describe lang nila, present lang nila kung ano yung mga mga species ng tutuloy. No? And that's already research. So, baka inisip kasi natin dito na yung research dapat experiments lang. But descriptive research is a very important area in that it just lays the ground for further research, no? Because it just describes what is out there and what is the status quo. No? So, kung carry out ko yung research na to, let's say in 2020, I can run the research in 2025, and that's a real research now. And we can compare this distribution and compare that like to previous studies such as this one. So that's already research. And I just want to stress that I took this from the Philippine Journal of Science. And when Dr. Jeffrey will discuss the literature, related literature, and this is one database that you can check. And this is open source, so walang kailangang subscription para makita mo kung ano yung example na research na carry out sa Pilipinas. Okay? So I've also mentioned correlational research, and dito describe natin if there is relationship or correlation between two variables. So dito, sa study na to, describe nila yung mga predictors ng occupational health or yung health issues ng mga call center workers sa Cebu at sa Manila. And we correlated it with different qualities of the subject. Let's say, yung isang variable ay yung age, yung edad ng mga call center agents. And then ito yung mga health issues na na-observe nila. No? So, dito, tinanong nila isa-isa yung mga call center agents, and then they mapped out the different health issues and presenting that according to the age group. So dito, makikita natin na mayroon dito mga relationship or correlation coefficient provided by this P. So, direct nila kung ano yung likelihood or yung probability na, let's say, gano'n ka probable na yung isang age group na will encounter frequent errors sa trabaho, for example. So, makikita natin na dito, ang pinakamataas na nagkakaroon ng frequent errors ay yung age na 21 to 25. So maybe yung errors sa work o yung pagkakamali ng pag-carry out ng work may be higher in this age group than others. So yun yung correlational research. This, let's say, yung age group affects the possibility of encountering frequent errors. So that's correlational research. There's other two variables, and then we compare another relationship nila sa isa't isa. Okay? Then we come to the experimental research. So ito na yung i-describe natin today. And this one is, well, I have a title here. This is not from the Philippine Science, but public science. So you can look this up in the internet. And this is a scientific journal issued by the, I think, the Philippine Science High School in Western Visayas. And ito naman, we studied the effect of powdered chicken egg shells. No? So what they did is they took samples of eggshells, crushed it, and hinalo nila sa lupa. Okay? Hinalo nila sa lupa, and then they grew this plant, Vanga rabiata. At ito ang local or one of the species sa Pilipinas. So that sila naman sa different formulations or different concentrations ng eggshells sa lupa. So they have 0%. So ibig sabihin walang nilagay na hinalo na chicken eggshells. Tapos 10% and 15%. 10% yung lupa na yun nagtatagal or contains 10% of the chicken eggshells. And then they measured the growth of the stalk and the roots dun sa different formulations na yun. And they compared it between different days and also different concentrations of the eggshells. So that's experimental research. No? So ang kinontrol nila na variable dito is yung concentration ng eggshells sa lupa, and then compare nila yung isang variable na to, yung stalk length, depending on that variable. So ito, makikita natin na there are two variables. No? The independent and the dependent variable. Now, yung independent variable, ito yung control mo na variable. Yung variable, ibig sabihin, nag-vary, di ba? But it's independent. Hindi siya nag-depend sa ibang variable. Ito yung control mo na variable, independent variable. And in this case, ito yung concentration ng eggshell sa lupa. And then your dependent variable is the stalk length. Kung ano yung stem ng tubo na mundo.
Yep.
No?
So JP, I like this part. So siguro sa students natin, the way you can think about this is yung cause and effect.
Yes.
So yung sinasabi ni Kuya JP nyo is yung cause is you can control how much chicken eggshell, so yung pwede nyo ilagay sa lupa. No? Pwedeng 1 gram, pwedeng 5 grams, pwedeng 1 kilo. Yun yung nakokontrol nyo. Yun yung pwede nyong baguhin by design. Yep. And then yung cost, you are controlling yung cost. Ano ba yung pagbabago? And then yung effect, ano yung response? Ano yung dun sa halaman?
Ano yung outcome, di ba?
Yes.
So, ang outcome dito, ano yung length ng tumubo na stalk, and then ano yung length ng roots na tumubo.
Siguro
So,
JP,
ito.
ito gusto ko rin siguro matackle natin, no? Kapag ba magde-design ako ng experiment, ilang variables ba ang aking i-control sa kada experiment?
Isa lang.
Okay. Bakit importante 'yon na isa muna yung ating control variable? Bakit kailangan klaro na isa muna?
Kasi ang research question natin is ano yung epekto doing coded eggshells. No? It depends on the research question. No? Parang, kung ito lang yung gusto kong malaman, then I should keep this one variable constant.
Yep.
Okay? And then I will see what is the effect of that certain controlled variable dun sa ibang variable. Kasi kapag meron ka pang ibang factors na nababago, let's say other than the concentration of the colored eggshells, ibig sabihin, yung effect hindi na tayo dun sa concentration ng eggshells. No? So, those are factors. Pero, ano na ipapagin ko yung experimental control kung bakit kailangan natin i-control yung other factors other than the independent variable.
Okay. So siguro dito, JP, yung pag dinesign mo to, ang babaguhin mo lang is yung amount ng yung eggshell, no? Amount ng eggshell. But then, yung klase ng lupa, yung klase ng halaman, yung amount ng sunlight, yung amount ng water, lahat yun pare-parehas.
Dapat pare-pareho.
Okay.
No?
Yes.
Kasi ang pinag-aaralan natin dito is ano yung epekto ng concentration ng chicken eggshells sa lupa.
Yes. So kapag
Okay.
hindi mo control yung ibang variables, posible na yung pinagkaiba ng resulta ay hindi dahil
sa kanila. Hindi dahil sa pinag-aaralan natin. So it's very important na isipin natin kung ano ba yung ibang mga factors na pwede contribute sa growth nitong plant na to. Let's say, for example, amount of sunlight nga or amount of pagbibilig or watering na ginawa natin. And we should always keep the experimental controls constant. Okay? Ayun.
Alright.
So that's experimental research. I also mentioned about quasi-experimental research, but this is a little bit higher level already. Pero yun nga, kunwari ang example lang is ano yung epekto ng intervention programs sa mga diabetes patients sa isang locality. So ito, lang nila dito sa research na to na kung ano ka-epektibo yung intervention program na ginawa nila sa mga diabetes patients sa isang already existing rural community sa Mindanao pa rin, sa Davao City. Okay? So this is quasi-experimental because it's experimental in nature, but the subjects are already there and existing. Okay? And so, nabanggit na natin kanina yung notion na experimental control. And experimental design is the process of organizing the experiments to ensure that the right amount and type of data is available to answer the research question as clearly and efficiently as possible. So, i-unpack natin itong statement na to. So, the experimental design answers our research objectives, no? Or our research question. And I am here at this scheme, nagsisimula yung experimental design from the research question. No? So, inisip nga natin na sa example ko kanina, ang research question natin is ano yung epekto ng chicken eggshells formulation sa growth ng isang plant. Okay? And then from that research question, we'll break it down to research aims and objectives. So, ano yung epekto ng formulation na yan? And then, malalaman ko yun kapag, well, I think it's better if I share the actual paper. Okay? Yeah. So, ito yung journal article naman. So, dito sa mga high school students natin, let's make it a habit to read journal articles if we are involved in research projects sa high school. So, ito, napakagandang source of information ito kasi makikita natin yung kung paano yung mga experiments natin in high school would translate to an actual scientific research sa real world. So, paano yung itsura niya? Okay? And for that, with us, i-describe ni Kuya Jeff yung structure ng isang research article. So, sinasabi ko kanina that there is that research question. So, ano yung epekto ng powdered chicken eggshells? And then we'll put it down into research objectives. So, makikita natin that explicitly putting down the aims and objective of this research. So that is to measure the stock length of the landing plant depending on the composition of the soil, and then measure the root length and establish if there is a significant difference among the different values of stock length in relation to the soil composition. Okay? So, yung methods or experimental design should answer each of these questions, no? And how did they do that? So, they actually measure the stock length and the root length. And ipinapakita ng experimental section natin dito kung paano nila ginawa yung paano nila design yung experiment na to. So we had the preparation. So makikita natin na ito yung pagsulat ng methodology na part or yung experimental na part. So kung saan siya gawin, so ano yung ginawa pressure, and then kung gaano kaliit yung powder na nag-do from the crushing process. So bakit kailangan pang ipakita kung ano yung type ng electric wiring na ginamit or gano'ng malaki yung mga core size. Ito, importante ito kasi kapag ulitin ng ibang tao, if other people will repeat this experiment and would like to compare yung result nila versus sa result na ginawa nitong group na to, it's very important that all the factors are the same. No? So kung ulitin nila, it's important na the same type of grinder, the same sizes of powdered chicken eggshells ang gagamitin nila. So dapat pareho yun. And also, makikita nila dito na ito yung composition, kung paano nila kinompose yung soil mixture, and then kung paano nila measure yung stock lengths at saka root lengths. So, makikita natin na medyo yung kasi parang piyata ito kung paano nila binasure siguro kinuha lang nila ng picture and then yung app na yung nagbigay ng actual measurements. So, ito yung experimental design. So, nakita natin very simple lang, no? Kasi ang research question natin is simple lang din, di ba? So, makikita natin na yung methodology is only as complicated as the research question. If you have a very complicated research question, kailangan ng very sophisticated methodology. So, pinag-usapan natin dito yung scope kanina. If you only have like 1 year to carry out a research project, then probably hindi makakatulong na research question natin is very encompassing or very long na yung methodology natin ay makakapagligado na hindi natin matatapos within 1 year. So maybe it will be helpful if we narrow down the research topic into actionable research aims and objectives na pwede natin ma-ensure within a limited time frame. Okay. Ayan, so that's one example. I'll just go back to my slide. So, okay. So I was showing this diagram from earlier. So, pag nag-design tayo ng experiments sa mga investigatory project natin, sinabi ko ba na kailangan yung methodologies natin will clearly explain what methods were used and kung possible kung bakit yung choices na to ang why we are making these choices. Kasi ito yung ipapasal natin siya sa panel interview. So, ipapagiging ka naman bakit yung pinuli nyo. Diba? Kasi, kaya sabihin na yung hindi na pwedeng patuloy niya yung ara. Or yung mga plans na nakapagpapagod. So, that explains the choice kung bakit no will allow the plan to fit within the time frame of the research. I think sabi ko, yung methodology should be descriptive and reproducible. Descriptive enough so that ma-reproduce ng ibang tao, ma-verify ng ibang tao with research na ginawa natin. So we put as much detail as possible both sa methodology or experimental part. Okay. So ano yung specific steps? So nabanggit ko nga na we define our research question, we write our hypothesis explicitly or not explicitly. So and then we decide that experimental treatments dependent on each of those research objectives. And then actual measurements or data collection. Ayan. Kung introduce ko naman yung portion ng controlled experiment. So, discuss natin kanina yung controlled experiment. So, when we are doing experimental research, we are again discussing a cause and effect relationship. And we aim to systematically and accurately manipulate the independent variable and precisely measure the dependent variables and control any potential sources of interferences. Yung interferences, yung mga factors na pwedeng maka-apekto, let's say, sa growth ng plant na yun, other than yung kinakontrol natin na aspect, which is the concentration of eggshells in the soil. So we aim to systematically control experimental conditions so that yung research lang yung magago. Okay? And we should also ensure na yung dependent variables, kung paano natin ensure yung stock growth and or growth should also be constant, should also be consistent, no? So dapat measure natin, otherwise, probably yung results natin, yung conclusions in the end. So, we control the conditions and we make sure that we take the measurements accurately and consistently as much as possible. And then we should also control any potential source of interferences. So I would just like to share again this paper. So makita natin na dito, makikita mababasa natin na yung blocking wire and pots were organized every single day. So ibig sabihin, pwedeng yung positional pala ng plants could affect the growth also. So the point na yung blocking ng plants were randomized para makasing yung effect. Let's say, ng amount of sunlight na mabawasan yung effect ng let's say, amount of sunlight na receive ng bawat plants. Okay? Ayan. And then, I'm searching for siguro dapat pare-pareho yung nagbibigay dun sa mga plants every single day. Yeah, but I think it's written here somewhere, but I couldn't see it at this point. Okay. Ayun. So, since we are talking about essential skills for today's webinar, so I would just like to mention some of the hard skills. Some of the hard skills, ito yung mga concrete na skills or technical skills na ma-acquire natin from conducting an experimental research. So, una muna, yung design of experiments, I will discuss this later, and also experimental control. So, kung ma-learn natin yung skill ng experimental control, as I already discussed here, ito yung experimental control. No? Kung na-exercise natin yun, and matutulog natin yung skill na yun on controlling the experimental conditions, magagamit natin ito sa iba pang mga bagay. No? If you carry out another research, then nakabanto na yung skills natin on how to carry out an experimental design. Okay? And that's experimental control. And of course, the analytical techniques na pwede natin ma-acquire. So, maaaring sa pag-carry out natin sa research, we might acquire techniques on how to assemble a robotic assembly, or let's say natuto tayong nag-measure using UV spectroscopy, no? So marami tayong pwedeng makita complete analytical skills when we carry out a research project, at dala-dala na din natin yun. So matutunan na natin yun. Okay? But first, I would just like to speaking about analytical techniques. Kung we're still a bit hazy on what types of analytical techniques na pwede natin gamitin sa mga projects natin, I invite you to watch this webinar on the introduction to different analytical techniques. This was delivered by Professor Billy Boyce, isa namin kasamahan sa Filipino Science Hub, and she introduced different types of analytical techniques na pwede natin na-encounter sa mga binabasa natin ng mga journals, and we can look back dito sa webinar natin ano yung techniques na yun, or paano mag-break yung measurement method na yun. So I invite you to visit this. This is in our YouTube and also in our website. Okay. And I was mentioning kanina yung design of experiments. So ito, ano lang siya, technique or strategy lang siya sa experimental design para ma-expedite or to make um, our experiment faster with using an optimal amount of resources. This is a research strategy invented by Raymond Fisher in 1958. And it is a systematic planning tool uh, when we are conducting an experimental research to obtain as many data points from a number of experiments. So we must have become optimal number of experiments. And this is very important kung ang resources natin, being like high school students, pag-limited tayo sa time or sa resources sa pag-conduct ng experiments natin. At magagamit natin ito to the set of experiments mabalasan yung number of experiments and still come up with a sound conclusion or get a sound number or a sensible number of results. Okay? So dito sa video this is also discussed by Dr. Jeff in one of our webinars in the experimental design. So I will just give you a brief discussion on design of experiments. Let's say, for example, our research objective is to fabricate or synthesize good nanoparticles. So, yung good nanoparticles, yung napakaliit na particles ng gold, yung size. So, kung makikita ng naked eye. No? So, we would like to synthesize tiny gold nanoparticles using different conditions. So, ito yung mga reagents or chemicals na gagawin natin. So, this is the source of gold from this reagent, and this is the reducing agent. Nagagawin natin para ma-reduce yung gold kasi ito ionic form pa ng gold to. And then, pag ginagawa itong reducing agent, so ma-reduce itong gold ions into metallic gold. So, normal gold na siya in the end. Okay? So, we have these reagents or concentration of chemicals. And then, meron mga experimental conditions dito. So, we have temperature, experiment na yun, synthesis na yun, and then also the pH of the reaction mixture. Okay? So here, may tatlo ka na factors, no? Or variables. Ngayon, kung gagamitin mo na concentration, let's say, tatlong concentration scheme, ito chemicals na to, let's say, tatlong temperature, and tatlong pH, 3 pH conditions. 3 times 3 times 3. So, 2700 experiments yung kailangan mong gawin. Diba? Kasi, tuloy natin yung kailangan natin yung conditions so that isa lang yung magagawa. No? So, kung gagawin yung isang concentration, kung gagawin yung concentration ng reagents, we should keep the other factors constant. So, 3 times 3 times 3. 27 experiments kagad siya. Pero, when we are carrying out design experiments, what we do is we just put out values. So, for example, meron lang tayong minimum and maximum value. Let's say, for example, the ratio of the chemicals. Let's say, ang lowest concentration na logical for this type of synthesis is 0.5. and your highest is 2.5. So we just put those bookend values, lowest and highest, minimum, maximum. Okay? And then dito sa temperature, lowest temperature observed sa mga previous studies is 20 degrees. And the highest during study is around 17. So we can take that bookend value also. So, pwede ang initial natin na conversions will be just 20 and 70. Okay? And then, the pH value will just be pair and line dito sa z-axis na to. So, meron kang x, y, z axis. So, we take bookend values, we take this bookend values and carry out the synthesis using just these three this bookend values from three different experimental conditions. So what we have already there is a maximum of 8 experiments. Kasi dalawang concentration lang, dalawang concentration lang, dalawang temperature lang, and dalawang pH lang. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay. So from 27 experiments, kapag into 8 experiments na lang. For example, no? And from your 8 experiments, you already saw na parang 2 temperatures na to, it's a 0.5 concentration at 70 degrees centigrade, and at pH 4, we already did of 75. So makikita natin ang personal grade dito sa conditions sa compared dito iba. Okay? So what you do now, kasi alam mo na itong ideal conditions, then you will focus on that condition and compromise the synthesis process around these ideal conditions. So pwedeng mag-do ka lang ng concentration of 0.4, mag-do ng konti, yung concentration of 0.5 or 0.4 or 0.45, and just see if this yield will improve further. So ito, very important po kung magandang yung access mo sa reagents or you have just a limited time during this synthesis. No? So it's a very important skill to have. And pag nakikita natin din, in life, we will be able to optimize and allocate our resources effectively. Okay? So yeah, part naman ng experimental control na sinasabi ko is that we ensure that the measurements that we do are reliable and valid. So, ano ba yung measure ng reliability and validity sa experiments? So, our ating experiments will only be if the results are reproducible. No? So, kaya siyang i-reproduce ng iba. So, kung gawin natin na experimental design ay ikaw lang yung nakakagawa, then hindi siya reliable. Na, kunwari, ito yung technician lang na ito yung nakakagawa ng, let's say, instrument. So, hindi yung i-reproduce na iba. So, mag-question tayo ng reliability sa experiment natin. And our experiment should also be valid. So, as much as possible, yung validity na lang pertains to kung gano'n natin ginamit ang validated method. So, what are validated methods? So, standard methods for measurement or standard instruments, for example, na available din sa ibang lugar. No? So, standard ginagamit ng lahat. For example, spectroscopy in the UV invisible light range. Okay? So standard method yan. Nasa literature siya. So as much as possible, when we're doing experiments, first rule natin is standard methods of measurements so that we can make sure na yung experiments natin are valid and reproducible. Okay? And as I said, kanina, ito naman, we should also aim that our errors or bias are minimized at a certain extent. Okay? That's why ginagawa natin yung randomization na tinatawag so that mababawasan natin yung interferences. Ano yung kapag-pagulong dun sa experiment natin. So nakatanap ito na dun sa chicken egg shells experiment, we randomize the placing or the blocking of the plants kasi pwede nakapag yung sunlight. And of course, kapag gumagawa tayo ng experiment, there should always be a control group. So ano yung control group? Ito yung blank. So, dun sa experiment naman meron na tayo na 0% 0% chicken egg shells dun sa soil. So that is the control group. Sample ng soil na blank, wala siya butang na eggshells. Kasi ang pinag-aaralan natin is the effect of concentration of eggshells in the soil. So dapat, ikukunin natin siya sa samples na nilagay natin walang eggshells. And that's our control group. Okay? So, pag carry tayo ng experiments natin sa science investigatory projects natin, ito naman gusto ko iiwan na necessary in terms of experimentation. It should be reliable, reproducible, valid. So as much as possible, we use validated methods. You can search the internet for standard methods for different measurements. And we'll be sure that we have a control group and we'll minimize the interferences or confounding variables sa experiments natin. Okay? I don't know if there's already some questions at this point. Intellectual honesty, we'll tackle that later. So, I just want to follow this context for now. Okay? Meron din sa YouTube kanina about programs and stuff. Yeah.
Pero isang question, JP, from Alexandro Agsangre. How about intellectual honesty po? So, it was asked.
Yeah. Intellectual honesty will not be push-ups to show. Kasi kung limited na tayo ng time and then siguro yung results natin don't really make sense to us. Pero it doesn't make sense to us kasi yung nag-like yung approach natin and then we're trying to like the results so that ma-fit yung hypothesis natin sa mind natin. No? But intellectual honesty entails that it means that we are honest about our results. Kung negative results siya, hindi siya nag-fit to sa hypothesis natin, then intellectual honesty forces us to declare those results. No matter how contrary they are to our hypothesis. Kasi, ano lang, hindi lang natin personally. Paano lang tayo ng mga factors sa experiments natin that cause those negative results. And it's important that we declare those results kahit hindi siya nakakayos sa hypothesis natin. can give some possible fresh context dun sa study natin. Kasi kung nila natin, according to our hypothesis yung result na yun, nabago natin yung landscape ng research na yun. Okay? So parang may evidence na natin yung susunod na research kasi natin tayo honest sa result natin. No?
And everyone, I would also like to emphasize, so the slide that JP is showing right now, he gave emphasis to two things, reliable and valid. So
Yeah.
when he said, like he talked about reproducibility as well. So, and that's part of intellectual honesty, that when you talk about your research, you have to provide sufficient information for other people to carry out the same experiments and get the same results that you did. For example, if JP did an experiment in Finland, he should he should write up his work in a way that is very clear and has all the details that I need kung ako ang gagawa ng experiments sa US. And technically, kapag parehas na parehas yung gamit namin, parehas na parehas yung aming methods, we should get the exact same results.
Yeah.
That's part of intellectual honesty. And then on the result side, sabi nga ni JP, there are times that you would perform research and sometimes your data would not support the hypothesis, or sometimes you don't have enough data.
Yeah.
So when you communicate your results, you have to acknowledge that, hey, what we saw is the opposite of what we expected. Or we don't have enough data to make a solid conclusion. So it is your responsibility as the author or as the proponent of the research to make sure that you only claim what your data can back up.
Yes.
Yun. So, ang tendency kasi nakita ko rin ito, siguro JP, ma-share ko lang sa mga science investigatory project students. Ang tendency nila is to claim a lot, like this will do this will do that. But then when you ask them questions about where are the data, walang mapakita. So it's just about claim. So that's also part of, like intellectual honesty and integrity. You're only claiming, you're only concluding about certain questions that you have data to support.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kung
sa Marites, walang dapat dagdag.
Yes. Walang dagdag bawas.
Walang dagdag bawas.
Yes. Kung ano lang yung sinasabi ng data, yun lang din muna yung conclusion nyo. Of course, you can extrapolate, you can interpret it, but then at the same time, when you make claims and conclusions out of your data, dapat kung ano lang yung nakita nyo, yun lang din yung gagamitin nyo to base your conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Alright?
Alright. So, I would just like to mention this quickly. Yung about inquiry. Kasi when we're carrying out sa kanina na dapat nag-experiment tayo, validating methods, so that probably those methods might not be available to us. Pero, pwede available siya sa Google locality natin or sa ibang research institutions. So that's why we should also develop the skills in inquiry. So research is all about collaboration also. No? Na hindi lang ginagawa ng research na tayo lang. The only measure of success of the research is that more people are involved. No? So, dapat mag-develop natin yung inquiry skills natin. Kung meron tayong specific methods or analytical tools na hindi available at our disposal, we can search the immediate locality or nearby provinces where what is limitation might be possible. No? So we just pitch our research, let's say, ginagawa po namin itong research na to and we have these specific objectives, i-explain natin sa kanila, let's say through an email, kung ano yung ginagawa natin, ipakilala mo na kayo and what you do. And then, if they can lend us some help in in terms of this specific analytical method. Let's say you are gawing meta-analysis sa soil, no? Pwede explain natin yung research natin sa kanila and ask them if pwede natin i-submit yung samples natin for meta-analysis in their research institution. No? So, it might not work, but at least we tried. No? And there lies the power of employee. Hindi natin alam kung if we want, and then the door will open. No?
Yeah, that's a very important point. Sometimes when you do research, pwedeng gumana, pwedeng hindi. Regardless of the outcome, lalo na sa high school, kung hindi siya gumana, it's all okay.
It's okay. Yeah. So, yun lang. Kung nakakabot lang naman, then ask them. Then, what research involved kasi na-witness mo yung possibility na yun. Okay? Kung hindi namin available yung instrumentation na yun, we can look implement for comparative methods as much as possible, also standard methods na available sa atin. But for ad hoc or like in-house developed methods, so dyan na pumapasok yung reliability issue. So as much as possible, let's minimize like developing these ad hoc methods na hindi naman natin ma-reproduce later on. But kung medyo kung sa oras and limited na sa resources, then we can still use this kasi there might be some value in these alternative methods. Let's say, for example, ang ginagawa nila mo measure ng, let's say, spectroscopic analysis is just your phone cameras. Hindi siya reproducible kasi nakapayapin siya sa photo, pero that's the best that we can do at that point. And we should mention that in the methodology part also. Na hindi siya standard method. So, workers will put a bit of salt while reading that, and it's not standard.
Yeah. Okay, JP, there's a question here.
Yeah.
From Alexandra as well. Dapat po ba natin sundin ang intellectual honesty kahit po hindi nag-connect ang result ng experiment sa hypothesis po natin?
Yes.
Or kapag hindi tugma.
Yes. Yeah.
And if, whatever it is that you do, kahit anong research program yan, you have to present your data and interpret it the right way. And if the interpretation is the opposite of your objectives or the opposite of your hypothesis, that doesn't mean that you failed. That could mean that there's a different explanation or something different is happening.
Yeah.
So ganun yun. So just because ito yung hypothesis ko, ang goal ko is to prove na yung color nitong gantong chemical will be red. After you perform 100 different experiments, ang kulay pala ay blue. So if the color is blue, then you honor the result of your experiments, most especially if the experiments are done in a valid and reproducible manner. This is the thing. Nature will not lie. So ang nature natin, what it wants to do, it will do.
Yeah.
Right? So don't force the answer. Again, this is very important. Don't force the answer to fit your conclusion. Your conclusion should explain the data.
Yeah. Yeah. So in connection with experiment or hypothesis. So it might be so that yung hypothesis mo ang mali.
Yep.
Diba? So, kung hindi magtutugma yung results sa hypothesis mo, you can just start in the conclusion na hindi tayo ng hypothesis. There might be some other aspect of the research na wala nakita during that limited time frame of the research, which may influence which may help influence the results. Okay? And then we can check the literature again kung ano ba yung observe ng ibang tao.
Yep.
Okay? So speaking about related literature, I'll stop this discussion for now. I will hand over the virtual floor to Dr. Jeff.
All right. So at this point, we can go for like a 5-minute break para naman maka-refresh kayo. If you want to get food, take it. And then we will use the remaining 30 minutes to cover review of literature. And then yeah, so 5-minute break. Thank you so much, JP, for talking about experimental design.
Yeah.
Kailangan yan ng mga estudyante natin. And then yeah, I mean, again, so come back po sa session. I mean, you don't have to dial out. 5-minute break. All right. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you later.
See you.
Welcome to PhilSci Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part, it's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci Hub Research University.
Mabuhay! Welcome to the Filipino Science Hub. Thank you for your continued support to this online platform. To our new participants, thank you for checking us out today, and we would like to officially welcome you to the PhilSci Hub family. Before we start the webinar, I would like to share some house rules in order to facilitate a smooth session. For our Zoom participants, we would appreciate it if you could turn your audio and video cameras off during the webinar. If you have questions or comments, feel free to type them on our Zoom chat box or YouTube live comments, and we will try to accommodate as much questions as possible. After the talk, we will have a 30-minute Q&A where the Zoom participants will have the opportunity to ask their questions live. For those who would like to receive a certificate of participation, a Google form link will be posted on our Zoom chat box, YouTube live comments, and YouTube video description towards the end of the webinar. Again, welcome to all our Zoom participants and YouTube live viewers. For those who are new and may not be familiar with who we are and what we do, allow me to share our mission and vision in the next few minutes. Filipino Science Hub is an online platform founded by our CEO, Filipino scientist, Dr. Jeffrey Camacho back in 2012. Currently, we are a registered nonprofit organization based in Houston, Texas, United States. Our mission is to promote STEM education and the culture of research among students and teachers in the Philippines and abroad. Our current global leadership team is comprised of volunteer Filipino scientists, seasoned STEM educators, and business executives across the globe. Our vision is to see a technology and innovation-driven Philippines, and we believe that this can be achieved by creating a new generation of well-rounded Filipino STEM enthusiasts. The vision is being carried out via our two major programs, the PhilSci Hub Ed program and the PhilSci Hub Research University. Through PhilSci Hub Ed, we are able to empower and support our teachers by strengthening STEM fundamentals education. We believe that this is important because the more equipped our STEM educators are, the more they can inspire students to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The other major program that drives our vision forward is PhilSci Hub Research University. This is where we provide tools for fundamentals of research and bring practicing scientists closer to the educational sector. Our official website is www.philscihub.com. This is where you can access all our materials such as webinars, tutorials, modules, virtual lab, and features, all of which are free. We are also present in several social media platforms, so follow us wherever you are most active on to get updated with our web events. Again, thank you for being with us this morning.
Welcome to PhilSci Hub Research University, your ultimate guide on your next research project.
We will lay down the best practices in research ideation, literature review, experimental design, and data analysis to guide you as you carry out your research project. Learn from the PhilSci Hub team of research scientists and some invited subject matter experts. PhilSci Hub Research University will be your personal coach through every stage of your research project, from ideation to final assessment.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
Visit us at philscihub.com and be part of this learning journey.
Let's learn and succeed together here at PhilSci Hub Research University.
All right, so we're back from the 5-minute break. And so we have about 30 minutes to cover review of literature. So, all right, I'm hoping that you guys were able to at least like have a fairly quick break. And all right, we're gonna power through this. Oh, I think. Please bear with me. All right, so talk about review of literature. So JP so initially like we covered ideation, you know, like creativity, how you can generate ideas, where to look and how to generate ideas. And then JP talked about how you implement your study, you know, experiments that you have to run to gather data and validate your hypothesis, ano? But then JP gave emphasis to a couple of very important characteristics of a very good research topic, which is that it should be clear, actionable. So meaning you have an idea of what you want to achieve or of your objectives, and then actionable, meaning you would know what to do in the form of experiments. And for you to be able to do that, para magawa niyo yun, you need to be able to come up with an idea that is clear. So again, alam nyo kung ano yung gagawin nyo. And typically, when you do ideation, the first attempt, the first time that you come up with an idea, what you typically have is a broad idea. Okay, like, oh, I'm interested in COVID research. The first time that you generate your idea, hindi pa siya klaro. I mean, it's a broad topic, and then it's a question of, I know naman, what about COVID research would you like to study, right? So you have to perform this exercise of refining and focusing your idea. So meaning from a very broad interest area, you have to perform a process by which you can learn more about what has been done in that field of study. And then as you learn more about what's been done, you can then generate questions, the specific questions that you would like to answer. And kapag ginawa niyo yung exercise na yun, the outcome of that is that you have a very specific topic. Di ba yung definition natin kanina ng research? Research is done to answer questions and improve our understanding of a chosen topic. So just like one focus topic. And then each research topic, to validate your hypothesis, typically would require for you to answer one or a multiple set of research questions. So kapag nag-ideate kayo, ang goal nyo is get the idea and then formulate your research questions, and those research questions will be the basis of your experiments. So connected itong mga elements na ito. And this is what we're going to be tackling over the next few slides. So how do you make your ideas clear, actionable? You have an idea of the experiments that you have to do, and then relevant. All right. So etong diagram na pinakita ko kanina, that you have to refine your idea. So yung thinking, yung reasoning na gusto naming ma-practice nyo is deductive reasoning. So meaning you start from a broad idea, and then you're gonna formulate questions to narrow it down. So meaning from malawak, gagawin yung, ano ba sa Tagalog yung narrow or focus, like mas makitid or hindi siya kalat-kalat. So you're just focusing on one specific topic. And the way you do it is you should focus on pain points. So meaning pain points, ano ba yun? Ano ba yung mga problema sa sistema? Ano yung kulang? O, di ba? Halimbawa, kung pumunta kayo sa farming community, nakikita nyo silang nagbubungkal ng lupa. If you notice that, for example, the tool that they use to plow the soil is not working well, that is a pain point. Kakulangan yun. Or yun, that's a cause of frustration or difficulty. So if you think that way, if you identify pain points, that's actually how you come up with specific topics that you can work on, right? Hindi lang yung tutulong ako sa magsasaka. That is a broad idea. But then if you go there and you observe and I will come up with a tool that will make it easier for our farmers to plow the soil, then specific yon na ang focus lang ng gagawin mo ay gumawa ng tool na papalit dun sa kanilang asarol. Ganun yon. And then, upon doing this exercise, as you come up with a more specific topic, you will be able to formulate specific questions. So, okay, gagawa ako ng tool, gagawa ako ng asarol. Ano bang klaseng tool yung gagawin ko? Ang gagawin ko bang tool ay robot? Meron ba akong ganong kapasidad? Or do I just modify? Should I just modify yung current na asarol nila because yung asarol that they are using is cheap or mura? So, baka gumawa ako ng robot, hindi naman kayang bilhin ng mga farmers. So you have to start formulating these questions in that when you talk about tools that the farmers will use, you also have to identify the type of solutions that you're going to explore or hypotheses that you're going to explore that also match your resources. So for example, if you're looking at robotics, do you have the ability and the resources to come up with a robot within 1 year that would solve the problem of the farmers? Or kung sa tingin nyo, what you can just cover within 1 month is, I will just modify. I will modify and improve the tools that they're currently using. Then that can be the approach. So again, you have to refine your idea into a specific topic and a set of research objectives that you want to achieve. So sometimes when we frame these research objectives, we frame them in the form of research questions, right? So what is it? What are the improvements that I will make with the tools that the farmers are using? That is a specific research question. And then you can base your experiments based off of that. So it could be that, is there a cheap and economical way of improving the current design of their tool? That is an even more specific and actionable question. So dapat ganun pag nag-generate kayo ng idea, hindi kayo titigil lang dun sa broad objective. For you to be able to come up with a high quality research project, you have to break your topic down to one specific main objective, and then under that will be specific research questions. So what modifications am I doing to the current tool? How am I going to measure efficiency, for example? How am I going to demonstrate or measure improvements in the cost? Paano ko ito mapapamura while improving the design of the tool? So again, focusing it to one topic and then formulating your research questions. And and then I'm going to be using a specific example. So for example, one of you developed an interest in nanoparticles. So gusto ko yung nanoparticles. So nanoparticles are forms of matter that are 1 times 10 to the negative 9 of a meter. So napakaliit nito. So most of these particles you cannot see with your naked eye. And so one student developed an interest in gold nanoparticles, and he actually deposited it on a carbon-based material called graphene. So research nyo yan. And then what this student essentially realized was that, upon reading the literature, when he was coming up with an idea, he discovered that some studies said that yung gold nanoparticles daw can have medicinal applications, and merong mga studies before that show or indicate that gold nanoparticles can be anti-cancer treatment drugs. So the question that he has is that, can my materials be used for the same application? So yun yung tanong niya, no, na, ay, yung nanoparticles, gold nanoparticles pa na ginawa ko, pwede ba siyang gamot sa cancer? So that is a form of an idea. But then at this stage, this is still fairly broad. Kasi gold nanoparticles to treat cancer. Ang tanong dyan, ano specifically yung gagawin mo? So an exercise that you guys have to practice in order to refine your ideas is essentially to look for information out there. Okay, information, I'm talking about work that other people have done. So you collect information to refine your idea. So this is like an example. So if that person, like in the previous slide, engage with their friends on, okay, like, ito yung broad idea ko. Could you help me refine my ideas and come up with a more specific topic? And in the process, let's also formulate yung research questions or yung hypothesis that we're gonna be validating during the performance of research. So for example, like one of the friends of that person or like classmate shared what she read about the topic. So she said that, nabasa niya that gold nanoparticles agreeably are anti-cancer agents, so pwedeng gumamot ng cancer. And then yung isa pa niyang nabasa na yung gold nanoparticles daw, para daw gumana siya, kailangan yung size at saka yung shape uniform, if possible magkakaparehas. And then ang nabasa rin niya, di ba gold mahal yung gold. So ang sinabi niya, mahal yung gold. So medyo mahirap siyang gamitin gamot kasi hindi siya mabibili ng mga kulang sa aspetong pinansyal. And then sinabi niya na kaya siya mahal is hindi lang because it's gold, but because yung proseso by which you prepare or you manufacture the gold nanoparticles, the process in itself involves a lot of steps, requires so much energy. So in the process, yung mahal na material is also mahal, it becomes more expensive because the process is expensive. And so that's a conversation, no? And then the other person like participating in this team ideation said that nagbasa din siya, and then he said that okay, like there are other studies out there saying that yung silver nanoparticles nagawa in a cheap method using conditions that are mild and using cheap materials. And so in that process, they talked about what other people have done and what other people have learned. And then what the second person suggests was that perhaps pwede niyong gamitin yung cheap method na ginawa nung ibang researchers to come up with a cheap way of forming gold nanoparticles that can be used for cancer treatment. So, ano ba yung ginawa nitong mga to? So, bukod sa nagchikahan sila, bukod sa nagmaritesan sila about STEM, what they did was they talked about what they read from the literature. So, dito papasok yung importance ng review of literature. And this is like, why are we talking about this within the first half of the research process? Unfortunately for most of us, yung review of literature nai-introduce lang sa atin towards the end. So it's either when we are writing up the proposal or when we are writing up a paper or a research presentation. But what you have to realize, students, is that if you really want to come up with a good idea, what you have to do and what you have to make sure is dun pa lang sa ideation or sa brainstorming stage, you're already reading up the literature. Dapat nagbabasa na kayo na, teka, ito bang tanong ko? Is this even a question? So going back to the point of, nagawa na ba to? Baka may nagawa na. Or so if you're looking out for that answer, kung nagawa na ba, dapat maintindihan nyo na, okay, itong part na to naaral na. But then there are certain aspects or elements of that topic that has never been explored before. And that's kapag nagbasa kayo sa literature, magiging clear sa inyo na, okay, what I am trying to do is really needed to better understand the system. So again, even in the idea generation stage, you should start to read the literature. And ito yung major lesson that I would like for you to take with you as you move forward. High quality review of literature is key to identifying a good research topic and identifying a scope. So meaning, ano ba yung mga experiments na gagawin mo? yan ay hindi nyo i-design just straight out of your head. Because at the high school level, medyo kulang pa kayo sa experience, kulang pa kayo sa familiarity. So, you would know of yung mga standard methods ng pag-perform ng experiments by reading up the literature. Okay? Because kapag present nyo na yung inyong study in front of a panel of experts, yung mga experts na yan, they would know that, okay, ano ba yung mga largely or widely accepted na methods sa pag-measure ng performance, sa pag-gather ng data. So kapag yung approach nyo is hindi consistent with kung ano na ba yung established at tanggap ng field of study na yun, medyo mahihirapan kayo to convince people that your results are valid and reliable. So again, you get those insights by reading up yung review of literature. So dito napapasok talaga yung bakit ba tayo nagbabasa? So nagbabasa tayo for a number of reasons to get information, no? Okay, to get information. And then secondly, kapag mas naiintindihan nyo na kung ano yung nagawa at hindi pa nagagawa sa field, reviewing the literature should be an opportunity for you to formulate your research questions. So ito na yung nagawa, bakit hindi pa ginawa to? So ganun yun, itong approach na to hindi nila sinubukan? So that's how you formulate your research questions. Again, hindi lang to madadaan sa isang usapan lang and then hindi kayo nagbasa and then you have your questions. Like typically, medyo shallow yung questions na magagawa nyo doon and baka yung question nyo na yun, nagawa na ng iba, hindi nyo lang alam. And so we actually have a webinar on the review of literature on our PhilSci Hub platform. So this is a 3-hour session. So talagang hinimay-himay namin yan. So, but I'm actually gonna focus our conversation over the next few slides is, okay, ano ba talaga yung practical approach sa pag-perform ng review of literature? So, one thing that I would like to also highlight at this point is that you guys are lucky because you were born and raised in the era of information. So meaning, you just go to the internet and you will have access to databases. So you have Google Scholar, you have ResearchGate, for example. You've got the Philippine Journal of Science, which is an open access journal. So any one of you can just go there, read up the literature, and pwede nyo kasi i-download yung mga papers dyan. But then, we're also encouraging for you all to, go to the library because you would have books and theses and manuscripts and journal articles that you may also be able to access there. So take advantage of traditional sources of information as well as open access information that you can get out of the internet. But then word of caution, so sa internet kasi there's no screening talaga or walang super effective way of filtering yung information. So meaning there are times that you might come across information that are not valid or di ba yung mga fake news or fake information. So you should also know how to figure out whether your source of information is a reliable one or not. We also talked about that in that webinar. So be mindful of this, that you are tracing the source of information and that those are actually reliable sources. All right? Okay, so one thing that I would also encourage for you to do, in addition to going to databases and reading up books and journal articles, if you are someone who's into innovation and engineering, if you want to invent things, one very important source of information that you can also start, getting familiar with is yung intellectual property. So magbasa kayo ng patents. And the good thing about patents is that once the patents are published, you can just go to Google patent. You can read up a lot. And kung gusto nyong malaman, ano na ba yung cutting edge? What is the best system out of any area of invention? You can get them from patents because before they get published and commercialized, patents are filed first. So even during the developmental stage. So again, we also covered how you can read patents and extract information that you can use in developing, your research project and approach. All right. So gaya ng sinabi ko, the research process is not linear, no? And one very important lesson that I have to hopefully imprint in your brain is that you do review of literature at all stages. Ideation, you review the literature. Experimentation, as you review the data and interpret them, you have to review the literature. When you're drawing conclusions, you have to review the literature. So itong exercise na to, you only don't do this kapag nagsusulat na. And typically, if you do the review the literature at the very end, you're quite late and you might not be able to make full sense of your data. Yeah, so pagsisisihan nyo yan sa dulo. Kapag sa dulo nyo lang siya ginawa. Alright, so again, review of literature is very important in focusing your ideas into a clear and actionable one. And like again, review of literature, the more you read, the more you're going to be able to formulate good research questions. So again, practice nyo lang yun. O ito yung ginawa nila. Ano yung hindi nila ginawa? Ano maganda sa hindi nila ginawa? Ano yung kulang? Ano yung feeling mo hindi mo mapapaniwalaan? And also that's also one thing, ha? So there are some results that people will come up with and conclusions that they will write up in their papers. But people's conclusions can actually be challenged. Like if you generate data from your experimentation that goes up against that do not support or debunk conclusion of other people, you can also challenge them. Most especially if you're confident with the data. Kasi typically, we only look at our data in the context of our hypothesis. Ay, teka, yung data ko hindi consistent sa hypothesis ko. But what if your data is consistent with others' hypothesis? Ito yung sinasabi namin ni JP that, don't force your data to fit your hypothesis because your data might be fitting other people's hypothesis. It could just be that when you formulated your research question, medyo iba yung perspective or iba yung angle na ginamit nyo. So again, trust the data and then interpret the data. Hindi yung force the data to fit your hypothesis. All right. Again, basa lang kayo na basa. You have to keep reading up the literature. And so, how do you review the literature and use it as a way for you to clearly state your project idea or your research problem? So these are some of the ways that actually this slide was put together by JP from 3 years ago. So there are 4 different ways by which you can do this. So upon reading the literature and learning more about what is it, what is the specific idea that I'm intending to cover. So as you read the literature, you have to ask yourself, yung bang topic ko, kailangan ba talaga siya? So, and you can learn that from reading up the literature. What are the challenges? What's missing in the field? So, by reading what other people have done and what they have not done, yung hindi pa nila nagagawa, dun mo makikita, my idea is needed because no one has done this before. Right? No one has actually looked at this particular element. And then secondly, highlight the ideal state versus the current state. So, meaning, pag nagbabasa kayo ng literature, you also have to look at, okay, what is the best system out there? For example, if you're talking about fertilizers, no? What is the best fertilizer out there? Is it like a chemically manufactured fertilizer, or is it like chicken eggshell, for example, no? For example, that could be a motivation for that study, that what are the alternatives that could actually work as well or better than commercial fertilizers. No, so dun papasok yung ideal state, ano yung pinakamaganda, ano yung current state. So ano yung meron ngayon, ano yung pinaka-target nyo. So for example, if the intended performance is 90% and yung best system or yung current system is only performing at 75%, if you can make that differentiation from data in the literature, then you have a clear case for action. So meaning, oh yeah, kung 75% yung current state at yung target is 90, then if I can come up with something that performs at 80 and at 90, then that means that you're making an improvement. So ganun yung gagamitin yung information sa literature to really frame your research topic clearly. Nakita mo, yun yung magiging impact ng ginagawa ko. No? So again, kapag sa dulo nyo to ginawa, marirealize nyo, ginawa ko yung experiment. Tapos, at the end of it, ang conclusion mo ay, teka, parang ngayon ko lang nabasa. Meron, nagawa na pala to. At yung performance nung kanilang output or yung outcome ng kanilang study is even better than what I did. So, ibig sabihin nun ay parang medyo nasayang yung oras natin dun. So, kung chinek natin at nagbasa tayo, di baka iba na lang yung ginawa natin. So, again, this is the reason why sa ideation stage, dapat nagbabasa na kayo and you are establishing the need and the importance of your project. So, gaya na sinabi namin ni Kuya JP mo, begin with the end in mind. So, mind mapping, defining kung ano yung end point can also come from the literature. Again, kung ano yung intended outcome can be inspired by what's in the literature. So, wag lang yung you're ideating amongst yourselves na tingin ko ito. You can be more confident with, and you can be specific with your target if you start asking these questions in the beginning. So, second naman is, if you find it difficult to come up with a research statement all in one go, you can start by answering the 5W questions as you read papers, no? 5 Ws. Who, what, where, when, and why. Who are the test subjects, or who would be like the beneficiaries of this study? Sino yung makikinabang? What? Ano talaga yung aaralin ko? Or ano yung gusto kong i-develop? Where? Yung bang gagawin ko is specific to my community, or yung gusto ko bang impact nung gagawin ko is pang buong Pilipinas or pang buong mundo? Dapat klaro yan sa inyo. And then when? Is my study over a specific time frame? For example, if you're studying growth of corn, so gagawin mo lang yon during the season of corn. Like when it is the season to do that experiment. So again, you can frame your research topic and your research questions and objectives by answering the 5W questions. And most importantly, why? Why are you doing this study? If you're working on a research project and it's not clear to you why you're doing it, there's something wrong. Medyo mahirap yun kasi hindi mo alam what are you doing it for. But then as you frame your research topic and questions, you have to make sure that you are clear and concise. So meaning, if I write up a proposal and I say that my research objective is to study the effect of fertilizers on corn growth in Batangas City, in this barangay in Batangas City. So doon pa lang, alam mo na ay corn growth area sa Batangas City, like during the summer, during summer. So doon pa lang makikita mo na ay yung research objective ko, yung research objective ko, klaro na okay, it's focus. Alam mo na kung anong idea, magkakaroon ka ng idea, ay yun yung gagawin niya. Yun lang yung aaralin niya. So ganun siya. But then the way you bring your ideas to focus depends on how well you read the literature. So I couldn't emphasize this enough. All right? And then, ito yung example, no? So, anti-cancer research. I was like, ay, gusto ko na gumawa ng anti-cancer research. That could be one of the broadest ideas one can come up with. But then, if you read up the literature, you realize now what part of cancer research are you trying to address? Or do you want to make like medicines or anti-cancer treatments? That's a subset of anti-cancer. And then, there's a lot of anti-cancer treatments. So what are you focusing on? No, I want to focus on nanoparticle technology. So like new technologies to do it. What kind of nanoparticle are you going to be using? I'm going to use gold. And then, like what type of gold nanoparticles are you forming? Oh, I would like to form size uniform and shape uniform nanoparticles because there can be like random shapes and sizes of nanoparticles. And so you keep asking these questions until you reach a point where, okay, so you want to use like gold nanoparticles with the same size and structures or shape, and then the question of, okay, when you run out of questions about the material, the question is, how do you measure anti-cancer property? Okay. Oh, I'm gonna measure anti-cancer property. Is it going to be in rats or is it going to be in humans? So I'm going to measure it in rats. And then what specific type of cancer cells are you gonna study? So by asking these questions, you are able to focus yung inyong idea. And then yung answer to these questions and yung guidance, you get it by reading the literature, reading what other people have actually done. All right? And so I will breeze through a couple of examples lang no on how you can frame this concept from a conceptual standpoint. We might go about like 10 minutes over our time commitment, but let me just like power through this para mapakita ko sa inyo paano ba yung approach. Okay, so when you're coming up with an idea and writing it down as a research proposal, you have to establish what we call a conceptual framework. So yung conceptual framework, yun yung guiding principle behind your project. And typically, this is what you write in the introduction. In the introduction of your proposal and also in the introduction of your paper if you're going to publish a scientific article at some point. So typically, there are three main parts to a conceptual framework. So the first of which is you talk about yung proposed work. What is it that you're really trying to do? Okay, or the why. Why are you doing it? So that dapat klaro yun sa simula pa lang. And then what you do sa first part na yun, when you talk about, okay, this is what I'm intending to do, you back it up with, ano ba yung mga information sa literature or dun sa related articles that can help you define the problem. Again, no? So hindi lang yung, ay, ito yung problem na isosolve ko. Tapos wala kang sasabihin na, bakit mo yung ginagawa? Ano yung basahin mo? Bakit mo siya gagawin? And those bases typically come from literature or from interviews. Yan na sinabi ni Kuya JP nyo kanina. You go to the farming communities and you interview them. Like, okay, they said that this is their challenge, so therefore, that is the basis of this research to find solutions to help make the plowing of soil in farms more efficient and cost-effective. So, di ba ganun yun? So, dapat may basihan. Hindi lang yun, wala lang, naisip ko lang. Diba? So, medyo hindi kayo magiging ganun ka-reliable or reputable yung inyong proposal kapag wala kayong data to back your intentions up. And then you typically end this section by talking about why is the research important. And so like, yeah, I mean, gusto kong i-improve yung asarol ng mga farmers, gawin itong mas epektibo pero mas mura. And kaya natin ginagawa to is to help the farming communities. So ganun yun. O alam mo na, ay, ganun pala. Kaya pala importante yung gagawin niya. And so, yung second part naman ng conceptual framework is where you... Paano ba yung Tagalog doon? Medyo nakalimutan ko na. 15 taon na po akong wala sa Pilipinas. Hindi na gano'n ka-natural sa akin humugot ng mga salita sa baul. So ang gagawin nyo naman sa second part ng inyong conceptual framework is that you will... I don't want to say enumerate, but you will
Lay down. Yeah.
Yeah, you will share some more. Ano pa ba yung mga dagdag na basihan or motivation for why you're doing this? So, and then kailangan mo establish anong bago, 'di ba? Anong bago sa ginagawa mo? Right? So, pag nagbasa kayo ng literature and when you're writing up yung conceptual framework ng idea ninyo, so you should talk about ano ba yung progress sa chosen area of research. So for example, ano na yung progress sa asarol? Ano na ba yung pinakamagandang asarol ngayon na ginagamit? So, hindi nyo makikita yun kung nandun lang kayo sa farm. Kasi kung anong ginagamit ng farmers, yun nga yung problema nila. So, ang gagawin nyo, punta kayo sa literature, magbasa kayo, ano na yung pinakamagandang asarol ngayon na ginagamit. No? So, you find that information and then aralin nyo yun. Yun yung pinakamaganda. But then tanong, mura ba siya? Bakit siya maganda? No, so by reading up the literature, you are gonna be able to figure out or establish ano yung pinakamaganda. And then secondly, yung idea mo or yung design mo ng asarol, how is it different dun sa pinakamagandang asarol out there? So by reading up the literature, you're gonna be able to establish bakit kailangan yung research mo. Ano yung kaibahan ng gagawin mo sa nagawa na ng iba? Again, and this is like a form of modification, no, yung example na ginamit ko. So yung tinawag natin na basihan, ano yung pinakamaganda out there, ang tawag doon, state of the art. State of the art system. So meaning, bago mo gawin yung project mo, ano na yung pinakamagandang nagawa outside of that? State of the art. Yun yung dapat nyo gagamit, hahanapin. Pag nahanap na yung state of the art, doon na madaling i-highlight yung novelty. Anong unique sa ginagawa mo? Ano yung improvement? Ano yung ambag mo sa field? Ano yung improvement na gagawin mo? So, ganun yung sa dapat i-approach. And then, you typically cap your conceptual framework by talking about your hypothesis, no? So yung objectives. So you have to state yung problem, restate the problem that you're trying to solve, and then you also bring up yung research questions. Ano ba yung research questions na sasagutin mo via experimentation? So una, i-redesign mo ba? Gagawa ka ba ng bagong disenyo ng asarol? And then secondly, kailangan pagkumparahin ang performance ng asarol na gagawin mo dun sa asarol na ginagamit ng mga farmers ngayon para ma-establish mo yung efficiency and performance. And then and then again, it's making sure that at the end of your conceptual framework, klaro kung ano yung gusto mong aralin at ano yung gusto mong ma-achieve. Alright? And then this is just an example, no, of a proposed of a conceptual framework. So proposed work. So the synthesis of cheap and size uniform gold nanoparticles is proposed, ultimately addressing challenges in the development of cheap and efficient anti-cancer drugs. So doon, klarong-klaro, gagawa ka ng mura at size uniform na gold nanoparticles. Bakit? Kasi kailangan yun para sa gumawa ng mura at epektibong drugs against cancer. Diba? So, doon sa isang sentence na yun, alam mo na yung intention and relevance. And then, doon sa middle part, sa related to the literature, you can mention several studies, integrate the size uniform, transition metals, make effective drugs. Yung second part naman ay mayroong mga cheap methodologies na pwedeng gamitin. So doon makikita mo na, ay, kaya pala niya ginagawa to. Kasi may mga ginawa ng pag-aaral dati na pwede niyang gamitin as inspiration. So again, this is actually debunk. Bakit ito yung ginamit namin example? This is also to debunk yung talagang mental hurdle na akala natin, ba't ko ito gagawin? Nagawa na ng iba. Diba? Hindi. Gamitin mo yung ginawa ng iba to come up with something that is unique. Again, modification and synthesis, those are very useful when it comes to research. And then when it comes to your hypothesis and objective, you have to say it clearly. Size uniform gold nanoparticles can be more effective anti-cancer drugs. That's your hypothesis. That's what you're trying to prove. And then you can also say that, okay, the use of cheap organic templates will be explored. So ano yung gagawin mo to establish or to validate that hypothesis? So kung ano yung nagawa ng iba, susubukan kong gamitin dito to prove my point na, ay, pwede kang gumawa ng cheap and more effective versions of those gold nanoparticles para mag-treat ng cancer. So ito yung approach, no? So when you are developing your idea and when you are proposing a research project, you cannot just write down empty promises and objectives. When I say empty, hindi mo alam kung saan mo hinugot. Diba? So, but if you read the literature, sure ka na, ay, alam ko na itong gagawin ko, kailangan to. Kasi base sa pag-aaral, ito yung dito sila nahirapan, ito yung hindi nila nagawa, ito yung challenges dun sa system. So, that's how you do it. So, wag lang sa dulo, dapat sa lahat ng stages ng research process magbabasa ka. Ideation, magbabasa ka. Design of experiments, magbabasa ka. Bakit? Sabi nga ni Kuya JP nyo, you have to find standard methods. Reliable and widely accepted methods. Kasi it's one thing to do your experiments, pero kung ikaw lang yung nag-design din ng study mo, baka hindi ka paniwalaan. Kasi kung ano yung na-establish na more likely, doon may confidence yung mga tao. So, design of experiments, ano yung gagamitin ko methods? And then, data interpretation. Bukas, pag-uusapan natin to. How do you draw conclusions? Like, if you're generating numbers from your experiments, what's the meaning of those numbers? And how do you find the meaning, behind those numbers? And then, when you draw conclusion, when you okay, is my hypothesis valid or not? You're only going to be able to do that confidently if you're reading the literature. And then most importantly, not most importantly, equally importantly, when you are writing your scientific article or report, kailangan mong magbasa. All right? So yeah, so that caps our session for today. We went 10 minutes over the intended time commitment, but this is again, if you have questions, we'd be happy to stay on another siguro 5 to 10 minutes if you have questions. But then yeah, I mean, like, we thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah.
Kasi makasaya nitong usapan ito. And I think meron yata question. Meron bang
Yeah,
questions?
I think there's may pumabot na question dito kung ethical ba na mag-download ng journals from illegal websites.
No.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so let us not do that. But there are ways, ano. So, teka, I will go back to one slide para mapakita. This is a very important
yeah.
question. Thank you so much for asking this question, ano.
Mhm.
So meron
Yeah.
akong slide para mapakita ko lang sa inyo na, 'di ba minsan meron tayong mga journals na wala tayong subscription, no?
Wala tayong subscription.
So,
Kasi
eh,
gusto natin yung journal na yun. Pero hindi natin ma-access.
oo, I don't recommend, please don't do that. Kasi that is, like, intellectually dishonest and it's a form of theft. So essentially, pag kumuha tayo ng walang permiso, anong tawag natin doon, 'di ba? Ano,
Mhm.
nangungupit or nagnanakaw tayo. So let's not be comfortable doing that. So dito pinapakita ko sa inyo. Okay, there are ways by which you can access articles. So typically Google Scholar is a good source, no? But then, if push comes to shove na, ay, hindi po talaga namin ma-access, Kuya Jeff, paano bang gagawin natin dyan? Punta kayo sa ResearchGate. So ResearchGate, para tong Facebook ng mga scientists. And so what you do is you look up yung author ng paper na hinahanap nyo. And if they're there, una, you can connect or follow them. And then typically, those authors can share copies of their papers with you. And alam niyo yung value nito, it's not only that you can access journals that they published, but you can also network with those scientists. Kasi alam mo sa totoo lang, yung mga scientists, kinikilig sila kapag may nagre-reach out sa kanila na, ay, ano po, ginagamit ko po yung study niyo for my research, but then I don't have access to your article. So could you share with me a detailed manuscript of it para po magawa ko talaga yung experiments the same. That's showing
Yeah.
respect to their craft. So again, ang kilang dito is kapal ng mukha. Ang mga mahiyain, ang mga mahiyain walang napapalayan.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to go out there, reach out and connect and ask. Kasi more often than not, they will give you copies. They would be
Yes.
happy to answer your questions.
Yes. And that's the power of interview.
Yes.
Sinasabi ko kanina. Ask and you will receive. Okay.
Yeah. If you don't
So,
ask, the answer is always no.
mhm. Okay. So, if may mga questions pa ba? I don't see any from YouTube. Dr. share mo na ba yung attendance form?
Ay, isi-share ko na ngayon.
Yeah.
So,
Ayan. So ito, a question from YouTube. Pag gumagawa po ba ng research, kailangan po ba na makakatulong ito sa maraming tao o sa bansa natin in an academic environment?
ideally, yes. So so I mean, it's one thing to work on your academic curiosity, but then yung sa totoo lang po yung truest meaning ng research really is if you're doing it for the benefit of like the broader community, for the benefit of society.
Yeah. But then again, don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, no? Parang huwag tayo magkaroon ng superhero complex dito. You just work within our means and focus on what is within your control, no?
And also,
yeah.
you're raising a very important point, JP, no? Kasi ang tendency natin is ang iniisip kasi ng karamihan sa atin na hindi walang masyadong experience sa research is kapag komplikado mas maganda.
Yeah.
Actually, sa totoo lang po hindi. The simpler your research is, the simpler, but then the more solid your conclusions are, the better.
Yes.
Ayun.
On one hand, maganda yung research, it's very well thought of and actionable.
Yep.
Diba? Kaya mo yan yung research and kaya mo tapusin, most importantly.
Yeah. So, ang tendency kasi ng mga tao when they're ideating and planning for experiments, parang gusto kong gusto kong sungkitin lahat ng bituin sa langit. Diba?
Yeah.
Parang ganon yung, teka, pinag-isipan mo ba na kaya ko bang gawin to within 10 months? Tapos tatlo lang kami. Tatlo lang kami
Mhm.
students. And some of the experiments that I plan to do would require expertise. Yung gamit ba nandito ba sa lugar natin? So again,
Mhm.
kailangan yung term po natin is fit for purpose. So kung ano yung plano mong gawin, dapat kaya mo, dapat meron kang gamit at dapat meron kang expertise. So alam mo na kaya mo siyang i-implement. So dito papasok sa totoo lang yung term na project management, no? You have a project, meron kang objectives. Ang goal mo dun is to design the process and the resources for you to get there. And kapag dun pa lang sa planning stage, alam mo na parang hindi ko kayang gawin to. So dapat klaro ka
Mhm.
and you have to be very honest with yourself and with your stakeholders that given my limited resources and time for doing this project while I'm in my 4th year in high school, then ang gagawin ko lang is to answer 2 questions sa halip na 10.
Yeah.
And that shows honesty, and that will improve your reputation kasi alam nila na ay this person is very mature, this person
Mhm.
knows the limitations of their study, and they made it clear in the very beginning na kung ang kailangan talagang question kung 5 ang tanong para maintindihan talaga tong lahat na to, 2 lang yung kaya ko. So yun lang yung ipapangako ko sa inyo na 2 lang po yung kaya ko. So
Yeah.
siguro 3 ay di gawin ng mga susunod. You can recommend it as idea for other people to do. But then ang tendency kasi talaga JP sa mga nakita ko lang na science investigatory projects is I will promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars, ganyan.
Mhm.
Pero after i-perform yung study, parang kalahating, parang half moon.
Mhm.
Lang yung nakuha. So ganun yun. So again, there's a disconnect between the objective, what can be done, and the outcome.
Yeah.
But so kaya kailangan pinag-iisipan nyo sa ideation stage. Ano ba talaga yung gagawin ko? Kaya yung
Yeah.
paulit kami ni JP, clear, focused, and actionable. If there's an element missing out there, if you're not clear, then therefore, kapag hindi ka clear sa intention mo, your design of the study will suffer. Kasi kalat-kalat ka, you'll just do things randomly. Focus. Okay, focus. So meaning, are you covering 10
Mhm.
objectives? Or are you only covering 1 or 2 objectives? So focus. And then actionable, can you implement? Can you perform the study? So yun. Tandaan nyo lang yung mga words na yan when you're performing your research. Okay?
Mhm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, delivered is better than perfect.
Yep.
No?
And also one thing, JP, you
Yeah.
important point. Sa mga teachers rin rito, ang tendency kasi ng mga teachers minsan is yung expectation sobrang taas.
Yeah.
Kami ni JP, we experienced na mahulma yung pag-iisip namin at yung academic experience namin abroad. Ang gusto din po namin i-share, kasi medyo ito, notorious to for Asian culture, yung perfection. You have to aim for perfection. There's no such thing as perfection. And sa mga students, there's so much anxiety around performing, like doing everything and performing
Yeah.
at the highest level. You should celebrate progress because there's no such thing as perfection. So kahit yung improvement sa ginagawa niyo is only 1% or 2%, progress should be celebrated. No
Yeah.
matter how incremental you think they may be.
Yeah.
Right? We don't only focus on the end goal because the end
Mhm.
goal, which could, if it's perfection, oftentimes is not achievable. So
Yes.
from that perspective, you're not being kind to yourself, So, all right.
Yeah, and enjoy this process. No, this is a learning process at the end of the day, and yun nga, may should tayo na trust the process, di ba? Very
And
fashionable yan, but
I
yun.
also have to say, after 15 years of leaving the Philippines to pursue my career in R&D across all sectors, if you're gonna ask me, was there among, say, for example, the 10 or 15 projects that I have worked on over those 15 years, have I achieved all of my research objectives? My answer to you is no, none of them. You know, I came up with ideas, I planned for all of them. None of them turned out exactly the way I planned them. So
Yeah.
just to give you an idea, wala sa kanila yung pilinano ko, nung ito yung, ay, inimagine ko, ito yung magiging outcome. Wala sa kanila yung sumakto.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the nature of research and development. Kaya yung,
Yeah.
I like the questions earlier about like, hey, what if my data are not supporting or are not consistent with my hypothesis? Trust the data. That's it. Trust the data because nature will not lie.
Exactly.
Nature will keep doing what it wants to do. So speaking of reproducibility, kapag halimbawa ako gumawa ko ng experiment, tapos pinili ko lang yung data na ipe-present ko, no?
Mm-hmm.
Like these data points are consistent with my hypothesis. But then if JP performs the same study and performs the exact same experiments that I did, and he realized that I have done this like multiple times, only 50% of the data are consistent with
Yeah.
hypothesis.
Paano na yan?
Yeah, again, paano na yan? So they will figure you out. They can challenge you. You know,
Yeah.
they can question you openly, which mapapahiya ka. It will ruin the situation. And but why is that? So why is it highly possible? Again, because nature will do what it wants to do. Because it's nature. Right? So you cannot mess with nature.
Yeah. Ayan. So parang nagpa-parting notes na tayo, pero bukas na natin isipin yung mga words of wisdom na yan.
Yes. Okay, so tomorrow, so thank you so much for staying on with us. We went 20 minutes over the time commitment, but we have the session tomorrow, and tomorrow is actually is an equally exciting set of topics because JP will cover data interpretation. Also, yung mga fans ng statistics, there will be like some elements of the statistics tomorrow.
Yeah.
Basic one. Very basic.
Very basic ones, yeah.
And then I will cover how you can draw meaningful conclusions and then how you write up a scientific article. All right. So that's going to be like an introduction that you'll get from tomorrow's session. So we hope to see you again tomorrow. It's Sunday. It's family day. But then yeah, we truly appreciate
really sorry, but yeah, this is all the time that we have. Yeah, we're trying to give it as much as possible to you.
Yeah. So we're halfway because most students are also only available on weekends. And
on weekends, yeah.
Kasi yung time kasi JP is in Europe, I'm in America, so we have to meet in the middle. So it's JP have to wake up at 4 in the morning. I will more likely it's almost it's 11:30 p.m. my time.
Yeah, happy gabi na.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Hindi na muna tayo magpipicture kasi mga students to.
Yeah. All right. Thank you,
All right. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you tomorrow.
YouTube participants natin.
Oh yeah, and then if you guys would like to review this, this is uploaded on our YouTube channel. If you want to review it.
Yeah. If there's anything that you missed, you can go back to the live stream.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope that
Thank
you
you
your Saturday and like see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, JP. See you again tomorrow.